Buenas tardes a todos. Estamos aquí para estamos aquí no se oye nada.
They can hear us now. We're good. Great. Apologies for our technical difficulties. I will restart. Good afternoon. I would like to welcome all of you to our board meeting. To access translation, please click on the globe icon below on the Zoom screen, or at Dijon, you can go to the corner of the room to get the materials. Para acceder a traducción, aprieten el botón del globo en Zoom, o en Dijon pueden ir a la esquina del gimnasio. We're returning from our closed session. After our opening procedures, the public will have an opportunity to make public comment. The board recently changed public comment format. We have opportunities on non-agenda items in person, through the Zoom app, and by telephone at the beginning of the meeting. Public comment will last now 1 hour. The time allotted for each speaker is 2 minutes. If you're attending the meeting in person, you will need to submit a request to address the board form to indicate your desire to speak on an agenda item. After it's been turned into staff, they are placed in order of when they are turned in. We also call on speakers one at a time and switch in between public comment in person and one at Dijon. If participating via Zoom, you will need to raise your hand by clicking the appropriate icon in the Zoom app, or by pressing *9 if accessing the meeting by phone. No yielding of time or substitution of speakers is permitted. The public will also have an opportunity to make public comment on agenda items after the staff presentation for each discussion and action item. The public will have 10 minutes per item and 1 minute per speaker. Due to the Brown Act, board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda and do not usually respond to items presented in public comment. Now, let's move to our opening procedures. First, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody, please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now we're going to move to our land acknowledgement. We recognize that we are presently on the lands of the Chochenyo, Muwekma, Karka, and Ohlone peoples and acknowledge them as the first inhabitants of the land we currently occupy. Dr. Hurst, can you please do a roll call?
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. President Gonzalez-Hoy,
Present.
Trustee Clerk Smith Folds,
Good evening, everyone present.
Trustee Reckler,
Good evening, I'm present.
Trustee Phillips,
Present.
Trustee Christian,
Good evening, President.
and our student trustees are not present. They did inform me that they are in traffic, but they will be here.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst. Do we have anything to report out from closed session?
Absolutely. The board voted to approve the appointment of Jeff Carter as Director of Business Services. The vote was as follows. Yes, President Gonzalez Hoy, yes, Trustee Clerk Smith Folds, and yes, Trustee Christian. Absent at that time was Trustee Reckler, and also absent was Trustee Phillips at that time. The board voted also to approve the appointment of Paul Mansing as Director of Curriculum Instruction. The vote was as follows. Yes, President Gonzalez Hoy, yes, Clerk Smith Folds, and yes, Trustee Christian, and absent at that time was Trustee Reckler, and also absent was Trustee Phillips. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to move to public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do. Our first public comment is Claudia Velez.
Good evening, Superintendent Hurst and board members. My name is Claudia Velez, and I have the honor of serving as principal of the Michelle Obama School Community. Every principal I know wakes up early each morning and logs into the eSchool system to find out how many teacher absences they will juggle that day. Going into problem solver mode when there are one or more absences with no sub assigned. Do we split classes? This means a day of no instruction for the students in the class. The teachers that take additional students have to reconfigure their day, and the students in those classes face a day of modified instruction. There are no winners, and students are the ones that suffer. Last year, we had a teaching fellow from Teach Start. We called her Ms. T. Having a dedicated and qualified sub that was training to become a teacher proved to be a successful solution. Ms. T became a part of our school community. If we needed her to cover a class for the day or support a number of classes, she would step up into each assignment. The beauty of having a site sub was that she grew to know the community. She collaborated with teachers and built relationships with students. She could take any class and turn a challenging day with no teacher into a continued day of learning for all students. We had a teacher go on maternity leave in February. When available, Ms. T worked with that teacher prior to her leave to learn the routines of the class in the event we did not have a long-term sub. Fortunately, we did get a sub. What was so valuable was that Ms. T was able to work in the class with the sub to transition her into the position. Students were able to continue learning with minimal disruption to their routine. When our long-term sub had to take an extended leave, Ms. T was able to step right in with no loss of instruction for students. I am incredibly grateful for the Teach Start program and am advocating for other schools to have the support of a teaching fellow that a teaching fellow can offer. I understand that funding is tight. However, we must put what's best for students and school sites at the center of decisions. This is a program worth investing in. In the end, some of these fellows will become teachers in our district.
Thank you so much.
Our next public comment is Jeffrey Bean. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, Dr. Hurst, President Gonzalez Hoy, and school board. Trustee Smith Folds, it was a pleasure to see you today, and also Mayor Murphy at Shannon Elementary. And Dr. Hurst, it was good to see you at Shannon on Friday. I am Jeffrey Bean. I teach 5th grade at Shannon Elementary. I've been a teacher at that school for the last, well, this is year 9. I've been here since 2015. My former students, who are now in 6th graders, do not have a teacher. There are a series of subs who rotate. We have a sub occasionally who comes in, and there's a retired teacher who takes a class a couple days here and there, and then other days there's no teacher, and they have to, the principal has to forego her principal duties to take the class, or else the class is split up. Today the class is split up. I had 3 6th graders who were visiting my class for the day. Well, it's always good to see them. I am concerned about their education since they do not have a permanent teacher. Last year, our school went through quite a bit of turmoil when the district planned poorly and reshuffled classes well into the school year. some of these same students experience that, and I don't think it's fair to them to put them through this type of thing 2 years in a row. I hope that you, Dr. Hurst, and the other district staff will do whatever you can to provide a teacher for these students. I know these students. I've known them for several years. I've known some of their families for many years. And you might not know them personally, but I do, and they deserve the best. So I ask you to do whatever you can to get them a permanent teacher quickly. Thank you for your time. Have a good night.
Our next public comment is Taylor Parham.
Good evening, Dr. Hurst and members of the board. My name is Taylor Parham, and I'm the proud principal of Lincoln Elementary here in Central Richmond. I'm here to talk to you about the Teach Start contract and to urge you to please consider funding it again for this school year. Last year, Lincoln received a full-time Teach Start fellow who showed up to work every day to support our needs. As you know, we are one of the highest needs sites in the district, so securing subs is always difficult. This is particularly difficult given the fact that we are competing against other sites in the district who also need subs, and we are often dropped at the last minute when a sub sees an opening at another school. This happened just yesterday at Lincoln. We had a teacher out and a sub picked up the job. At 8:15 a.m., right before the children were supposed to go inside to start their day, we learned that the sub wasn't showing up, and we had to split the class at the last minute. Unfortunately, this was a regular occurrence at Lincoln before we partnered with Teach Start. Last year, I was extremely impressed with the Teach Start fellow that we received. Despite living very far away in Marin, Ms. Ramirez commuted to Lincoln every day and was punctual, reliable, and flexible. She filled in the gap for whichever teacher was out for the day or simply running late. Because of Ms. Ramirez, we very rarely had to split our classes due to absences. In fact, I think we only split a class a handful of times last school year. In addition to the dependability of having classes covered, having Ms. Ramirez meant that we could also carve out significantly more collaboration time for our teachers. She covered classes so teachers could observe one another or meet to internalize lessons, assess student work, or look at data.
Thank you so much.
Our next public comment is Cristina Huerta. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Cristina Huerta, and I'm a teacher at Kennedy High School. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the 412 students who have attended a class without a certificated teacher for 9 weeks of the school year and counting. At Kennedy, we started the year with 5 vacancies in English, Spanish, PE, and music. Of those 5 vacancies, only 2 have been filled, which means there are still 412 students enrolled into sections with no certificated teacher. The quarter ends on October 24th, and these students have received 0 instruction. Most of them don't even have a steady sub, so they bounce around from teacher to teacher and sometimes end up in the cafeteria being supervised by an administrator. This is unacceptable. Last year, when Kennedy started the year with 2 science vacancies, all students were enrolled into Edgenuity online courses, and teachers were asked to supervise the classes for the remainder of the year. This was all set up by the end of September. We are now in October, and nothing has been set up for the 412 students enrolled in Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Music, ELD 4, and English 2. Offering Edgenuity courses last year was not the best solution, but it was something. Now we have nothing to offer, and students are expected to earn some sort of credit toward graduation. Not only is it unethical, but it's creating safety issues on our campus as students are wandering around finding their sub or have simply given up on attending their classes. I subbed for one of my colleagues who called out sick a couple weeks ago, and a student in that class told me they had seen no teachers that day. That student was either enrolled in a class without a teacher, or they had a teacher out sick, possibly due to the stress that we're experiencing on our campus from having to period sub for so many vacancies and deal with safety concerns on top of all of that. In order to support Kennedy, the first step is to set up students with online courses through Edgenuity and find teachers who can supervise those sections. It is inexcusable to deny these 412 students an education.
Our next public comment is Kim Chamberlain.
Good evening. I'm Kimberly Chamberlain, IFPTE Local 21 SSA Chapter President. I would like to give a huge shout out to everybody that attended Monday's Classified Professional Development Day. It was very successful. Very good reviews back. Evaluations came in from people being very, very happy. Couldn't have had better presenters for the day. Adult education showed up and showed people how to get well. We had de-escalation from LaShante Smith's team. We had Dr. McCray come. We had A2A. We had attendance. We were able to have business services show our custodial staff how to work through issues in the programs and Munis. We were able to have a huge turnout from our M&O team, and they were able to get a lot of information that day. I would also like to say thank you to Barbara Jellison for making sure that we were provided something for breakfast, continental as it was. Had a few issues with the coffee pot, I will admit, but we got that going, and at the break we had coffee. So that's all that counted, right? Get us through the day. It was a beautiful day. People were very successful, and I can't say enough how much I appreciated everybody's contribution to the day. Thank you, everybody on the team. I see Miss Loy is here. She stood right by me through the entire day, talking to our classified staff about how to become a teacher in this district. Wow, did she have some great conversations. Thank you very much, board, for making sure that we were able to do this. Maybe next year we can start a little.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is Maisha Harris Gash. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening. I want to co-sign my colleague, Ms. Huerta, and all that she said about what's going on at Kennedy. Yes, subbing is exhausting. But what I wanted to share tonight is this: in all this exhaustion, one, please continue to support our principal, Ms. McGee. She's definitely in it. Please continue to support our new AP, Mr. Little, as well, because we need them to stay. They want to be there. So please, district, whoever all that applies to, continue to support our new admin team. The second thing I want to share is, so today, one of my students, we'll just call him David. He doesn't come very often, but I'm always glad, let's say, but I'm glad to always see David. And so I'm like, hey, where's your tablet? And he was like, well, you know, it's at home, and I don't have a backpack, so, you know, I don't know what to carry then. So one of my schoolmates donates to my classroom, so I have some backpacks. I put a couple of them out. I said, hey, you pick. So he was like, really? I was like, yeah. So he picked one. You know how a young person has that look on their face, like, wow, like this is really mine. And so he went and sat down. And then he's like looking at the bag. I said, well, something's in there. Open up the bag, because I didn't know what was in the bag. So he got the bag. He came over by me. He wanted to do it in private, not in front of the whole class. And so he opens up the bag. There's like folders, pens, pencils, scissors, just notebooks and all that. And just the look on his face. So I can say, at least for that moment, it kind of made my shoulders come down a little bit to see that this young person is like, wow, I have a backpack. I can, bring my tablet. I'm not worried about it being broken or something like that. Because it is rough. It is rough out here in these streets, kind of thing. So I just wanted to share that there are bright moments in what we do.
Our next public comment is Tippewan McGee.
Good evening, Dr. Hurst and the board members. I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity to serve as a representative of John F. Kennedy as the principal, newly hired principal. As you've heard, many of my staff has called in requesting that we do get the much needed subs that are going to be provided through the Teacher Start program, the initiative that the district is currently seeking to assist the schools regarding the lack of credentialed teachers in our schools. Excuse me, I'm a little bit nervous. As the teachers already indicated that call in tonight, we've had about 9 weeks of students who have not received the appropriate instructional support due to the constant sub coverage that is being provided in our in-house with our teachers during their prep time. So unfortunately, it's not providing a stable instructional program for our kids, because what's happening is when you have teachers that are covering classes during prep time, they're missing out with providing prep for their own 8-period day that we currently have at John F. Kennedy. So it would be extremely beneficial to receive these additional subs through this program to help stabilize our instructional program. And thank you for your time.
And our last public comment is Jane Kinster. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself. That concludes our public comment.
Thank you to everybody who came to do public comment and everybody on Zoom as well. Board, we're gonna move to agenda review and adoption. Before we do that, I did want to remind you all, we are pulling 2 items from the agenda tonight. We're removing SNAP raise from C5 in consent. And then we're also removing E1 from action items. Okay, so with those 2 changes, there are no objections. We'll
I'm
adopt it.
sorry, it's C4, I believe.
I'm sorry?
I believe it's C4, not C5.
Oh, thank you for the clarification. You're right. It is C4. Okay. Yes, Trustee
Can
Record.
I ask a question about the action item being removed?
Are you asking why it's being removed? Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to discuss it.
No, I'm not asking why. There's just a legal deadline in there.
Oh.
If I may, you're supposed to hear that item within the first 8 weeks. So this is, I believe, week 8. And what happens if you don't hear it?
Can you repeat your whole question again, Trustee Reckler?
Sure. So the question is, on the removal of E1, public hearing and approval of resolution 2324-19 grades transitional TK to 12 textbook and instructional materials compliance for fiscal year 23 to 24. I believe that this needs to be done within the first 8 weeks of school. This is week 8. So if it gets removed, is there a penalty for the district or?
Sorry, Clerk Smith-Falls, if you have a comment, you have to
Sorry, point of order. This is school week 9. We're in school week 9, not 8.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Dr. Hurst, do you have an answer for?
Yes, Ms. Neely Johnson, I see that you're on here, and I know we were talking about this. Are you able to respond to that question?
Yes, basically we have informed that we are not ready. We have to have 100%, and right now we have about 4 schools that we are still trying to get all of the textbook sufficiency forms signed for. We will be meeting with teachers for the remainder of this week to get them to really understand their signature. In some cases, we have textbooks that are on order, and when a textbook is on order, you can still sign off.
Johnson, sorry, the question is if we are actually able to remove it, because the requirement is that we vote on it by week 8, and unfortunately it's week 9. So are we actually able to remove it and not?
We're not supposed to vote until it's 100% is the point.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Our goal
Okay.
is to bring it to the October 25th meeting.
Okay. Well, if when it comes back, if you could also bring us information on what are the consequences of us being late, we'd appreciate it.
Will do.
Thank you so much. Okay, board, with pulling those 2 items, if there are no objections, we will adopt the agenda. Okay, so adopted, thank you. We're now gonna move to the approval of the minutes from September 6th and September 20th. Are there any issues with the minutes? Okay, if there are no objections, we'll adopt the minutes. Okay, so adopted. Now we're gonna move to our first resolution. We have a lot of resolutions. Ms. Sanders, I believe you're gonna help us with all of them. So we'll go through each one, and we'll just do like we did for the agenda adoption and the minutes so that we move quickly. But if anyone has specific comments on one resolution, please raise your hand so I can know. But Ms. Sanders, I'll pass it to you so we can start with the first one.
Thank you very much. So our first resolution is Cyber Safety Month. Whereas our students and educators navigate a world in which technology is more and more integrated with our daily lives, raising the importance of students' ability to understand how technology impacts their lives and how they can use technology to make a positive impact in the lives of others. And whereas this new focus on cyber safety should become an integral part of children's education that is woven into the overall curriculum across all grade levels, and whereas the nation whose children best harness the educational and creative powers of the digital world will write the success stories of the 21st century and define the direction of our world, now therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the West Contra Costa Unified School District proclaims October as Cyber Safety Month and encourages all educational communities to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional activities connected to our 2023 theme, I Own My Online Self, which lifts up the importance and intersections of digital citizenship, safe schools, and media literacy.
Thank you. Are there any comments from any board members? Okay, Trustee Reckler?
Yes, thank you. I have some comments. First, everybody change their password. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. Got your message, Miss Logan. The next, though, is in this resolution. I'm hoping that everybody gets a chance, takes a moment to actually read it and to read in the whereases how many hours tweens and teens are using screen media. It is really shocking. It's not surprising, but when you see it in writing, from 2019 to 21, total amount of screen media used each day for tweens and teens went from 4 hours 44 to 5 hours 33. That's how I'm reading it. And among tweens 8 to 12, that was, and then for 13 to 18, 7.22 to 839 hours. I'm reading that. So, you know, I'm asking all of us, our educators, our superintendent, to really think about how tech is being used and, to really think about connections between people. That is not done through machines, and learning that's not done through machines. But everybody change your password. Thank you.
Thank you. There any more comments? Okay, if there are no objections, we will adopt resolution number 2324-21. Okay, so adopted. Thank you, Ms. Sanders. We can move to the next one.
Thank you, President Gonzalez-Hoy. Our next resolution is for Filipino American Heritage Month. Whereas providing an opportunity to examine Filipino Americans' history and culture, Filipino American History Month highlights the achievements and contributions of Filipino Americans and the economic, cultural, social, and patriotic contributions they have made in countless ways toward the development of our state and our country. And whereas more than 5% of the students in the West Contra Costa Unified School District identify as Filipino, and whereas cultural representation in education matters deeply, and Filipino American Heritage Month is an opportunity to uplift the leadership and contributions of Filipino American leaders such as labor activist Larry Itliong, Nobel Peace Prize winning reporter Maria Ressa, and California Attorney General Rob Bonta. And whereas to celebrate the cultural enrichments and historical contributions of Filipino Americans to our nation, the West Contra Costa Unified School District calls upon schools, educators, and communities to observe the month of October with appropriate ceremonies, activities, and programs to bring awareness of the significant role Filipinos have played in American history. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Board of Education does hereby adopt Resolution Number 232422 to recognize Filipino American History Month and to mark the achievements and contributions of Filipino Americans in West Contra Costa County and throughout the United States of America.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. Board, are there any comments? Trustee Clerk Smith-Wills. Sorry, and I should have clarified, we're going to do 2 minutes for comments on the resolutions moving forward. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing what our sites are doing to celebrate Filipino Heritage Month. So if there are sites out there that are having specific events, please reach out to the board and let us know, because I know that a lot of us would like to go and participate and go and see all the wonderful things that you're doing to celebrate Filipino American History Month. I'm complete.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, if there are no if there are no objections, we will adopt resolution number 2324-22. So adopted. Thank you. Ms. Sanders, we can move to the next one.
Thank you. Whereas research shows great schools are led by great principals and great districts are led by great superintendents who are all supported by extensive administrative networks throughout the state. And whereas the state of California has declared the second full week of October as the week of the school administrator in Education Code 44015.1, and whereas the future of California's public education system depends upon the quality of its leadership, now therefore be it resolved that the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Board of Education does hereby adopt resolution number 232423 to recognize October 8th through 14th, 2023 as the week of the school administrator and to celebrate the leadership of school administrators in West Contra Costa County and throughout the United States of America.
Thank you so much. Board, does anyone have any comments? Trustee Reckler?
I do. Thank you for bringing forward this resolution, and I want to thank all our school administrators, and I want to tell you how much you have taught me around being nimble, changing direction on a dime, empathy, compassion, understanding, patience. Really, I've learned so much from all of you around those topics, and I really appreciate everything you do for our schools and holding our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Phillips?
Thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity to recognize and thank administrators in general for the work that they do, because they really are actually, they do multiple jobs. They're teachers and their yard duties and their cafeteria workers and their principal. They just do a lot. But I also want to raise up the 3 principals who actually spoke in public comment today. And I want to raise them up because of what they had to say and how they said it. And they came and they shared pertinent information about their schools. And they made their point, in my opinion, in a very productive way. The issues at Kennedy that were highlighted tonight should be addressed. And if there is not anything that we can do besides what we did last year with Edgenuity, that should happen. But that should be the floor. I've always thought that Principal Velez is one of our best principals. So there are some people, when they begin to speak, my ears perk up, and she is one of those people. But I do just want to say thank you to all three of you for coming out and speaking about Obama and Lincoln and Kennedy, because your schools are important, your staffs are important, your teachers are important. And one word that I don't really want to hear, and I heard this from Principal McGee, is unstable educational programs. I mean, that's a term that she used, and that's not okay. I'm glad she said it. It's not okay because it needs to be addressed. So thank you to all of you, but those three in particular tonight.
Thank you. Trustee Christian, and then we'll go Clerk Smith-Foltz.
Okay, yeah, that's one to echo the same words. Appreciative of all of our administrators and that serve our schools and making sure things are running. And you know, we just want to make sure that we recognize all of our administrators, because without them, we won't have the schools running. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Christian. Clerk Smith-Foltz.
Thank you so much. I think that my comment is that I've always thought of administrators as the mothers of the district. They are blamed for everything and thanked for almost nothing. So we really need to take a time out to thank our administrators. And administrators includes our principals, our vice principals, our superintendent is an administrator, and the teachers that are in charge. When the administrators have to go, they leave a teacher in charge. That teacher becomes the administrator. So there are so many ways that we could thank our administrators. I would like to give a few suggestions. Gift cards. My second suggestion is gift cards. My third suggestion is no mugs, no flowers, no t-shirts. They have enough. Gift cards are a way of thanking your administrator, and it is a way to say thank you. Also having your student write a note and then put that note inside a gift card. I am complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith-Foltz. For me, I also just wanted to, I don't want to repeat what has been said, but I want to thank everybody, all our administrators, for all the work they've done. In the room, I want to thank our cabinet members. I want to thank our multilingual team. I'm sorry, Mr. Orozco, I am totally blanking on your department. Please, I apologize. But I want to thank you both for being here. Ms. Lloyd, thank you. I just want to thank the OCCAA as well for representing our administrators. Dr. Hurst, I want to thank you for your work. I think that my colleagues are right, and Clerk Smith will said it well. You all are not thanked enough for the long nights. I'm really seeing all your work this year. And even though we have a lot of gaps still in our system, like what we heard tonight, our administrators are constantly stepping up and doing the work necessary for our students. So I also just want to say thank you to all of you. And we will now move forward. So if there are no objections, we will adopt this resolution as well. Okay, so moved. Thank you so much. Ms. Sanders, we can move to the next one.
Thank you. The next resolution is number 232424, Bullying Prevention Month and Unity Day. Whereas the goal of Bullying Prevention Month and Unity Day are to encourage coming together for a common goal, to make stronger connections among community members to help create a healthier environment for all and prevent bullying. And whereas all students need and deserve a school environment that is both physically and psychologically safe in order to learn, now therefore be it resolved that the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Board of Education does hereby adopt resolution number 232424 to recognize October 2023 as Bullying Prevention Month and October 18th, 2023 as Unity Day, and encourages all educators, staff, students, and community members to create a world without bullying through actions of kindness, acceptance, and inclusion.
Thank you. Board, does anyone have any comments? Okay, trustee Reckler?
Thank you. So buried in this resolution, once again, October 18th is Unity Day in which school staff, students, and community members wear orange. October 18th, wearing orange to send a visible message that no child should ever experience bullying. I personally don't know if I own anything orange, but I'll dig into that closet and see what I can pull out. But it's really important. I hope everybody does wear orange on October 18th, and I'm looking forward. I hope sites really do plan something around inclusion and making everybody feel welcome and, welcoming community. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Christian?
Yes, I just wanted to say, bullying prevention, which is this right here, says a whole lot for our students, and adults. It should be no intimidating or bullying, but everybody should be treated with respect. And bullying is wrong. So that's for adults and students. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Smith Foltz?
I want to echo, make sure that you wear orange on the 18th. That's a huge thing. A lot of our sites have buddy benches on their yard, and that's a way to encourage inclusion and have students be there for each other, have adults be there for each other. So you sit on the bench, someone comes over and becomes your buddy. There's a campaign about saying hi to everyone that you see, say good morning to everyone that you see. So there are little steps that we can take as sites, as districts, as a district, as a board, to make sure that we are demonstrating a lack of bullying and exclusion. So I can't wait to go out to sites and see all the orange on the 18th, and to start seeing everyone say good morning and hi. As I do traffic, I say good morning, and I encourage the kids to say goodbye to your parents when they get out of the car, because these, 10-and-a-half-year-olds are like, I'm out. I was like, no, turn around, say goodbye to the person that drove you here. So there's little things that we can do as a collective to help with this. I'm complete.
Thank you. Trustee Phillips?
Thank you very much. This is a thought that I've had before, and as I sit here, I'm having the thought again. And I think these resolutions, this one is a great example. I think it's really good. I think it's really good for the board to adopt these resolutions. I think it's good for the board to publicly speak about these issues. But some of the issues that we pass resolutions on, the board can actually do something about. And it doesn't just have to be a statement, right? So like, for example, a resolution regarding bullying, the board, obviously working with and through staff, right, can actually do something to actually change the climate, to change bullying, and to make the learning environment more beneficial for these kids. So when we have a resolution like this, or even, at the same time, it would be good, right? Maybe if we had a presentation, just like we're having the presentation about the curriculum. It says, this is what we're doing about bullying, because we all know it's actually an issue. And if we could be doing more, then, this would also be the time to say we could be doing more. But when parents hear us make statements and their children come home and say that they're being bullied, sometimes the statements and resolutions ring hollow. And they don't have to, because we actually can do something about this. Making a statement is a great start, but it's only a start.
Thank you. For my comments, I agree with everything that has been shared by my colleagues. So what I'm going to say is that I do think it's great that we are passing the cyber safety resolution and this one together, because cyberbullying has increased in our society, especially after the pandemic, where we switched to Zoom, and our students are, of course, cyber literate, right? Way more than I probably will be, but So, and so I think that we have to also find strategies to combat the cyberbullying that exists, especially in our secondary sites. I mean, we've seen it in incidents where Instagram has led to a fight or has led to safety issues. So I agree actually with Trustee Phillips said about, like, I would love to hear and eventually later on, maybe through a safety presentation, just around how are we dealing or how are our sites dealing with that. I know it might be different depending on the site, but I would love to also hear that because I hear more and more how the access to technology has actually increased a different type of bullying, right, and safety issue. So, but anyways, but I'm glad we're doing them both together, and I agree. I think that I would love to hear more about, like, what are our schools doing? Because I know many of them are trying to address it. Okay, so we are going to now, without objection, adopt resolution number 2324-24. Okay, so adopted. Ms. Sanders, we can move to the next resolution.
Thank you. The next resolution is number 232425 in recognition of Indigenous Peoples' Day, which was this past Monday, October 9th. Whereas the West Contra Costa Unified School District joins the President of the United States and the Governor of California by acknowledging, honoring, and celebrating the perseverance and rich diversity of Indigenous people, as well as the contributions and immeasurable positive impact that Indigenous people have made to every aspect of American society. And whereas the West Contra Costa Unified School District also joins the Governor of California in solidarity and support of Native and Indigenous-led movements toward balance, reciprocity, and respect. Now therefore be it resolved that the West Contra Costa Unified School District's Board of Education does hereby adopt resolution number 232425 to recognize October 9th, 2023 as Indigenous Peoples' Day and commends its observance to all members of the West Contra Costa community.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments? Clerk Smith Folds.
I want to appreciate the district for changing it on the district calendar. I look forward to that change happening every year with permanency, that it's changed to Indigenous People Day. Also want to thank Panola Valley High School speech and debate team again for coming to the board last year and really pushing that. It was one of the highlights to have that put on the calendar, and we're moving towards fulfilling the other things that we saw in that resolution. So I'm excited for that. I'm complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith Folds. Okay, without objections, we will adopt resolution number 2324-25. So adopted. Thank you. We can move to our last resolution.
Thank you. This resolution is number 232428 for Banned Books Week. Whereas Banned Books Week celebrates the freedom to choose or the freedom to express one's opinion, even if that opinion might be considered unorthodox or unpopular, and stresses the importance of ensuring the availability of those unorthodox or unpopular viewpoints to all who wish to read them. Now therefore be it resolved that the West Contra Costa Unified School District recognizes that the week beginning Sunday, October 1st, 2023, and ending Saturday, October 7th, 2023, was Banned Books Week and commends all schools that have taken the opportunity to commemorate this occasion with appropriate instructional materials.
Thank you. Board, are there any comments? Trustee Reckler?
Thank you. So banned books has been on my mind for a really long time, watching what's happening across the country. And it has really bothered me, and I'd like to plug that I'm reading a banned book right now called 19 Minutes, which is actually about bullying. It came out many years ago, and somehow I never read it. I don't know how, but it's banned. It's about a kid who is so bullied that he actually shoots up a high school in New Hampshire. So this is all coming together for me. But what's happening across the United States and in California is really disturbing to me. And I encourage everybody to go to PEN America, the Freedom to Write website. And you can also go to the American Library Association and look at what is happening across country. Texas, Florida, Missouri, Utah, and South Carolina are the states where bans are most prevalent. Overwhelmingly, book banners continue to target stories by and about people of color and LGBTQ+ individuals. Due to cases where long lists of books were removed for further investigations, bans this school year are increasingly affecting a wider swath of titles, including those that portray violence, abuse, discuss topics of health and well-being, cover death and grief. They have a number of graphs about what's going on. I'm very glad here that California passed AB 1078. It's going to be a little bit of a mess. There's some things in there that need to get straightened out, but it was the legislature's attempt to make sure that representative curriculum and books are available to students. I support that 100%. I also, though, want to bring up that the board needs to look at 1312.2, which is complaints concerning instructional materials. This board has its own policy. I actually think it's pretty good, but we may need to tweak it to align with AB 1078. And so I hope that that is considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Smith Folds.
I actually have banned book buttons for the board, but I forgot them, sorry. I will bring them next time, but in line with what Trustee Reckler said, read a banned book, read it, buy it, publicize it, put it on your Facebook page. Let everyone know that there is no such thing as a banned book, because the people who are banning them, they're the red flags. So why does someone have the right to say what I can and cannot read? From a historical perspective, the first thing they did to enslave people was to tell them that you cannot learn to read. And there's a reason for that. Reading is fundamental and it's educational and it changes everything. So read a banned book, buy a banned book, publicize a banned book. I'm complete.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Ms. Sanders and her team for bringing this resolution forward. I believe it's the first time we're passing this resolution. And I don't want to repeat what my colleagues said, so I echo their sentiments. And thank you, Ms. Sanders and your team for bringing it forward. Okay, without objections, we will adopt this resolution. Resolution number 2324-28. So adopted. Thank you so much, Ms. Sanders. Board, okay, now we're moving to consent items. Just a reminder that we pulled SNAP raise from C4. Does anyone have any other items? Trustee Phillips?
13, please.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
13.
13. Okay, anyone else? Okay, if there are no objections, we will approve the rest of the consent items with C13 pulled. So adopted, thank you. Okay, we're gonna now move to the superintendent communication. Dr. Harza Pastillo.
Thank you. If we could bring up that presentation, please. If we can go to our next slide. We wanted to start with a couple of memoriams. The district would like to take time to recognize the contributions of members of our school community who have passed away. We regret to inform you that Gina Stewart from Pinole Valley High School, a teacher, recently passed away. She worked for the district for 20 years as an English teacher. Her leadership had a profound impact on the Pinole Valley High School English department and the whole Pinole Valley community. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to the family and friends during this difficult time. And we're going to do the moment of silence after I read the next one, please. Next slide. We also regret to inform you that Barbara Kiragawa, a veteran educator who served our community as a speech therapist, program specialist, and principal, recently passed away. She devoted the majority of her career in education to Cameron, and she was instrumental in developing programs and strong relationships with community partners. Our thoughts go out and prayers go out to the family and friends during this difficult time. And if we can all join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Next slide, please. I'm going to pass it to our Director of Communications, Ms. Sanders.
Thank you very much. We're happy to be able to provide an update on our communications campaigns, both on our attendance campaign that closed out in September and our cyber safety campaign that is launching for October. We will have continued data to report back on the impact of our attendance campaign as our chronic absenteeism data does take some time. So that will be available at the end of October. And what we have today is an update on the impact to what we call a decrease in any students with any truant event. So that's students who would have any excused or unexcused absence and any experience being late to school. So we are really excited to see that our attendance campaign efforts, which included a campaign throughout the community, outreach calls that were conducted at the district level and by school sites, positive attendance recognition at school sites, and we also improved our systems for attendance communications. So big thanks to the IT department for their efforts to make sure that we now have attendance emails that are pushing directly to the attendance clerk at each school site anytime a parent responds to a Parent Square attendance notification. So we were able to close a gap there in terms of a feedback loop between our school sites and our families regarding attendance. We were able to see that there was an immediate decrease in students with any truant event from 74% to 71% across the district. And we hope that will continue to decline as those improved systems for attendance communication and as these efforts to recognize students for positive attendance continue. And we will provide an update on the impact to chronic absenteeism at the end of October. Next slide. We are also very excited for the partnership that's occurring to launch our cyber safety campaign. So I want to echo the words that have been already stated tonight about making sure that these resolutions are more than lip service and that we're really doing things across district departments and at school sites to make this work come alive and make impact for our students and our educators. Our theme for our cyber safety campaign is I Own My Online Self, really focusing on raising awareness for students and staff on their digital footprint, on the impact of emergent technology like AI, how to navigate these things, and also on cyberbullying and how to take control of their online image and do the same for peers and friends. So there are many lessons across grade levels that include topics like being an upstander online. And there are also themed cyber safety tips that are going out to staff and community through email, through our messages to the community, and through social media. Next slide. All right, and I will pass it back to Dr. Hurst.
Thank you. We'd also like to provide an update on our strategic planning process. We have a Challenge 2027, and I'm going to share a little bit more with you what that really means. If we can go to our next slide. What I've been sharing with principals and executive cabinet is Rudy Crew is a mentor of mine. He's the former chancellor of New York City Schools and also of Miami-Dade County as well as the superintendent. And one of the things he shared with me is we need bold, passionate leaders that's not just tinkering with the system, but really willing to rewrite the script of education. And what he based that on was the fact that we have had all along in our education system a two-track system. And what he shared with me and others very clearly is that our educational system was never designed to educate all students to the high levels of expectation that we desire. And what we know and what I've shared with many is that we still currently have a two-track system that tracks Black and brown kids on a lower track. That is real. It's happening in West Contra Costa and it's happening across the nation. And what he's really saying is our system does not work. It is broken. I know people do not like to hear me using that term, but that's our reality across the United States. It doesn't serve all of our kids. And one of the reasons why I'm here and I want to be here as a superintendent is to really work with the community and staff to address that and to blow up the system and to really rewrite the script of education, which is why this process is really important to me. Next slide. which is really why we're doing the Challenge 2027, which allows us to have a 3-year plan, and I'm going to talk about the timeline as well. And it's not just the strategic planning process that's really important, but it's the LCAP process. And we thought that these two processes needed to coincide because we're going to be doing a lot of engagement with our community and a lot of engagement with our students. And not just with people inside the community or inside the district, but outside of the district as well. Next slide. And as I shared about Rudy Crew in rewriting the script of education, that's really what we're trying to do. We're really trying to change the outcomes for West Contra Costa Unified School District students. We're in our final phase of our strategic planning process. The first 2 years of me being here, my tenure has been engaging with the community. We engage with about 1,600 individuals, but we need to do more to complete the process. Next slide. So here you can see what has happened since I've been here. The first year was really about understanding our current reality through an equity audit or equity analysis. And through that process, there were 3 big ticket items that came out. One, we need to look at systems and structures, and we need to make sure that everything is aligned. Number 2, we need to make sure that we pay attention to equity issues. That was very clear to me when I arrived. The lack of equity in resources and human resources as well. Access and achievement was part of that second bullet. And then a big conversation piece was around authentic stakeholder communication or engagement. And what we've done over the past 2 years is we've had conversations around the mission, vision, graduate profiles, but we still need to do work around what are those skills we want our students to have when they graduate from our schools. And then what are the things that we value as well? And what are the characteristics of the adults that we want in our system, which is the adult profile? Some of the other work that we need to do to finish this out is understand what our goals are moving forward over the next 3 years, assigning metrics to those goals, and then associated actions as well. Next slide. So again, we've done a lot of work over the past couple of years. We have some pieces in place, but our timeline is as follows. We're engaging with a number of students, and I'll share with you how we're going to do that. We're engaging with staff in the community, labor partners included. November, we'll complete this process. We're going to take all the information from community and student summits. We're going to synthesize those findings. In December, we're going to be presenting the strategic plan to the board for discussion and approval. And then in January, we'll be launching that plan. Next slide. So the student summit, this will be an interactive process where we engage with a number of students, and I'll talk about the number in just a few minutes. And we're going to be using a model from Napa Valley, and I'll talk about that as well. At the same time, we're going to be engaging everyone else in town hall meetings and asking questions that's going to lead us to getting more information about our goals, our core values, graduate profile skills. Next slide. I took a team to Napa Valley Unified School District, had the opportunity to speak with the superintendent there. They're going through a similar process with their strategic plan. And they had a student summit at Napa Valley Community College. And they focused on 12 to 15 students from each of their middle schools and their high schools. And they bused them to Napa Valley Community College, and the cohort stayed with their own school. And there were 5 rooms, and they would go in one room, spend 15 minutes, be engaged with facilitators, and then go to next room and the next room until they finished the 5th room. And once they were finished, they would grab their lunch, eat their lunch, and then get on the bus and head back to school. The whole process was about an hour and a half. So what it looked like in Station 1, they talked about the past, and then they talked about the future. Next slide. And then they ask questions like this. Describe 3 things in life 10 years in the future that might become true that aren't true today. And then they ask the question, how do you feel that you're prepared or unprepared for this future? And students had the opportunity for 15 minutes to really engage and to write down how they feel prepared or unprepared for that future. In room 2, they talked about what are the skills, the knowledge and dispositions needed for this future. So they really scripted that out, which is really the graduate profile skills. In room number 3, they synthesized that down to what are the top 3 skills needed for students for this future that we described. In room number 4, each student had a Chromebook and they were asked to type in a response to a story. And it was really, tell me a story about an adult that had impact on you or that could have a positive impact on you. And that was the adult profile. Next slide. So we're going to be doing the same thing, but we're making this process our own. This will all happen November the 2nd, and we'll be using a hub and spoke model. And I'm going to ask Ms. Sanders to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. So we will adapt the student summit process for our much larger district by being able to use a process that helps us work simultaneously with students across many sites. So that's this hub and spoke model of training in which we have one central video facilitation with shared content. So that's the hub part of the model. And then the spoke part of the model will be to have on the ground facilitators at each school site who will really support students to have the conversations in the classroom together as peers to really break down the topics and be able to discuss in the amount of time that they need to and with people that they're familiar with in order to really get the kind of student voice that we need. And then they'll be able to participate using thought exchange and other interactive tools from their school site, but in a way that contributes to the larger process of gaining student voice across the district all at one time.
Next slide. So I talked a little bit about this. We're really going to look into specific questions that we're going to ask our students and the adults as well in the town hall meetings that really is going to allow us to get information about our goals, again, our core values for our organization, and the graduate profile skills. But there's going to be other questions that's going to be asked during this process. So again, for us, I'll be doing the intro to Challenge 2027. We'll do a dive into the future, look into the future. We'll have questions around graduate profile skills. We'll also look at the portrait for a caring adult, conditions for learning, core values as I shared, and then there'll be a portion for open feedback. Next slide. And as I shared, we'll be using a very similar process for our town hall meetings, again, for our LCAT process and strategic plan. And those town hall meetings will be on October the 24th, the 26th, and the 30th. Next slide. I want to just pause before I talk about our race and equity work. And I just want to give a shout out for the planning team. Those people who have been on the planning team that's really been instrumental in everything that you've just heard. Trustee Smith Folds, CAO Neely Johnson, and Director Sanders and myself. So I just want to give them a shout out. There's a whole host of members that's part of the task force that's been planning as well. And then right now we're in the process of looking at facilitators and identifying those facilitators is actually going to lead these sessions. So my hat's off for everyone that's been doing the hard work. Thank you so much. I now want to just talk briefly about the rates and equity work. This is extremely important work. And I'll just share with you, many of you probably know Dr. Rochelle Rogers-Ard. She's worked in our district before. She's very serious about the work. And what I've been sharing with everyone is this story that happened while we were having a gathering with educators, and they were telling me about a teacher in our district, a white teacher who is refusing to take Black students in their class. So the question that ensued, or the conversation that really ensued, was what are we going to do about that as a district, and what is our stance? What do we stand for? What will we not stand for as well? So the conversation about our anti-racist stance and our equity statement really needs to happen. And there's 4 important strands. One, Dr. Rogers-Ard is going to engage with our students, much like our student summit that we're doing for strategic planning. She's engaging right now as we speak with our executive leaders. She'll engage with every single one of our principals, but also there's going to be a smaller group of principals that we're going to do a deeper dive with. We haven't identified that criteria, but that will happen. And she's engaging with the board as well in retreats. And we shared that it really needs to start at the board level with policy and giving policy direction to the superintendent for implementation. But we're really pleased about that work that's starting as well. Next slide. We also wanted to highlight the literacy task force. I've not been on this task force, but you can see a picture of those individuals who have been instrumental in those initial conversations. And I believe we're going to be bringing this item back at the next board meeting to talk more in detail. And I believe Ms. Neely Johnson and Ms. Allison Mackler will be talking about it. But we just wanted to just share with you that there was an internal team launched that launched this work on September the 29th. The goal is to produce a framework for direction that we'll present to the board for implementation for the 24-25 school year. So just wanted to share that piece. Next slide. And at this time, Mr. President, we're going to pause and turn it over to Mr. Orozco. I'm not sure if you wanted questions now, or Mr. Orozco. So Mr. Orozco, you're on, sir.
Sorry, if you could click on the, there's a little icon with a face on it. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Hurst, school board members, team members, and dear community members. For this time tonight, for ELMA, the English Learner Multilingual Achievement Team, to present and really give you an inside scoop of designated ELD instruction and effective instruction for all English learners. Presenting tonight with me is also Coordinator Marianne LaFosse. Oftentimes, every blue moon, we get asked, is designated ELD time required? Can I just kind of glimmer over something? And for that reason, I always like to point to EdCode. And I'm going to quote this time. I rarely do that. EdCode states, for designated ELD, instruction provided during a time set aside in the regular school day for focused instruction on the state-adopted ELD standards to assist English learners develop critical English skills necessary for academic content learning in English. So this is why we're gathering here today. And the thank you goes out to pressing that expectation and that conversation to enhance effective designated ELD instruction. Today's first slide shows our district adopted curriculum in blue. In a little bit, we'll be going into detail in terms of what's available for students and teachers at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. We'll also be sharing some updates in terms of newcomer supplemental resources, also now available district-wide. And I want to focus on that word district-wide because these are now materials that is available to every single school site. It's not here or there. And then lastly, we also want to mention and share how this curriculum, the actual hard text, connects with our high impact strategies and our professional learning, including Elevation and the English Learner Toolkit of strategies. Now I'll introduce Ms. Marianne LaFosse to go over our elementary ELD curriculum.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Hurst and school board members. It is my honor to be serving as coordinator in ELMA, and I will speak briefly about the designated ELD curriculum for elementary that was adopted about 18 months ago. So we are in the second year of implementation. We have had extensive professional development, and this past year we just finished 2 after-school trainings for teachers, which was filled to capacity. It's about 35 teachers per session. And briefly, I will share with you what the curriculum is. It's organized by 10 different topics. Each unit is a topic. And these topics are from the social sciences, natural science, earth science, literature. And they are the same for aligning all grades. So 10 different topics that all grades delve into. It addresses all domains. It is ELD, California ELD standards-based, and addresses the 4 domains: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. There is differentiation in the teacher's guide, what to do with students who need more support, moderate support, or light support. And there is also formative assessment included at the end of each unit. And let's see, you will have a chance to peruse over the materials during the break. I will pass it on to Saul to talk about the secondary curriculum.
Thank you. I just want to remind the school board that there was links provided. Of course, demo accounts do not show the complete story, but I do want to just gentle reminder that feel free to jump into those demo accounts. For the middle school, currently we have a district adopted text, National Geographic. In middle school, it's called Inside, and in high school, it is called Edge. Now, in middle school, it works a little bit different. The text materials are divided by language proficiency level. So there will be a text for ELD 1 and a different text for ELD 2. And if there's the same text, they're divided by volumes, which usually means that the first part of the text is for ELD 3 and the second part of the text is for ELD 4. So that's how the scaffolds occur. Those text materials are also divided by language domains. And for National Geographic, there's 2 specific areas of focus, which is reading and writing. But it still includes that listening and speaking activity. Within the NG Connect, there's also online resources, just like the benchmark. And these online resources tend to be a little bit more interactive. For example, you can highlight, you can write notes on the side of the text, and you can even do audio if you want to listen to the story. Something that's very unique about National Geographic is that it's also provided when needed in a variety of languages. I would say 20 plus the last time I checked, which includes our district top languages, including Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, however, not Tagalog. As you can see, there's newcomer materials. We'll love to share this later when we have this a little bit more a sense of how it's working with students. We have a small sense. However, this is the first year that we are expanding this resource beyond a small group of students. For elementary, it is language and literacy. And for middle and high school, it is language tree. Next slide, please. Now that we have the hard copies, so students can check out these books from the library, teachers can check out their teacher resources from the library, and they can be creative in how they use this or follow the pacing guide, which is provided with each text. However, we believe that that is not enough. And in order to address and respond to our student English learner needs, we have to be proactive and highlight high impact strategies. For this reason, we're also partnering with the English Learner Toolkit of Strategies that's brought to you by the state, but also by our county. Last year, we worked with the co-author of that toolkit and with the county, and we even created some district-wide PDs and implementations additions to the ELT toolkit that spoke more to our particular needs. The toolkit also is TK12. Within that toolkit, there's videos, there's examples. It's also broken up by proficiency levels. And this is the coolest part. It's not only for designated ELD. It can be used in integrated ELD, which means outside of your designated ELD time. And we also know that effective ELD instruction works in a designated time and an integrated time. That means throughout the entire day. That is the goal. Okay. The next point will be our other key resource that's available district-wide, and that is Elevation. And pardon me, can I get to the next slide? I almost forgot. We'll come back to that one. Next slide, please. The third one, please. I just wanted to highlight what those high impact strategies were and how it also connects with our literacy goals. So we've been strategic about which of the strategies that are provided, and there's a plethora in the state and in the nation that connect to our literacy goals. So we want to partner with our literacy team in our planning. And as you can see that those high impact strategies are broken down into 3 categories to build on literacy, specifically for our English learners, which builds from word to sentence to text level. So that means they're growing in their proficiency. And these strategies are addressing students' particular needs in response to student work coming from the textbook, right? So that's a little bit of the partnership there. Now we're ready for the Elevation conversation.
Thank you. Elevation is a data platform. I remember when I first started teaching, and not until just recently, when we needed to have the list of our EL students to plan the times for designated ELD, we had to wait for a spreadsheet that was given to us by the specific multilingual department. But quickly, this spreadsheet was outdated because new students would come in, and we really needed update. The wonderful thing about Elevation is that updates every day from PowerSchool. So the information that teachers, principals, and everyone who has access is pretty current. And not only do you know about the students' EL level and the levels on the LPAC, but also all the demographics. And you also see all the results from SBAC, iReady. So it's really a good place for teachers to see not just the ELs, but also the EOs. But since we're focusing on ELs, we'll stay focused on how Elevation also supports the monitoring of the ELs. We are required once a year, at least once a year, teachers have to complete a form indicating what kind of progress is the student making, satisfactory, needs help. And so Elevation is a way to centralize all this and to keep it organized. And finally, one wonderful feature of Elevation is that strategies, which basically it comprises modules of professional development around topics that we all care about, like newcomers, how to support speaking and writing, how to go deep into reading, into complex texts. So all the things that we have as priorities, we have them in modules, and we also have collections of activities that teachers can browse through by grade level, by standards, by the subject area. So this is mostly what Elevation is about. We're very excited. We had two PDs and they've been well attended, great reviews. And we also held one for principals as well, because it's important to be all aligned and informed on what the resources are to support our English learners. Thank you very much.
Before we open up to questions, I just want the public to see the last slide that reviews a little bit of what Miss Marianne was reviewing in terms of what modules are available and how that PD strategically, once again, we know teachers are super busy, so we're thinking about you. Those PDs are available asynchronously and synchronously. So you can do it on your own time as a team. Today, we actually did one at a school site. So it is dynamic for teachers to use at their own time as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and Dr. Esposito's report. Board, we're gonna take a 10-minute recess so we can go and peruse the textbooks that they have brought forward and just presented. I encourage us all to ask questions, but then we're also gonna come back and be able to ask questions in public. So up to you all. The textbooks are on the floor level to our right-hand side. So if we could just put up signs as 10-minute recess. In public, will come back in 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Everybody. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, everyone, for engaging in this. Now we're going to move to questions. We're going to have 3 questions per board member. Just a reminder, we don't do comments for the report, but you can hold on your comments for the end of the night. So 3 questions. Does anyone like to start? If someone has questions. Trustee Clerk Smith-Foltz.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to look at the curriculum and to ask questions. So my question is, I think I have 2, but let's start with the first one. We have an internationals program at Helms for middle school, Richmond High for high school. Can you tell me how we support newcomers and internationals at our elementary school level?
One beginning piece is to look at the data to get to know our students. It's very important to know the level of a school, the literacy experience that they have, and wherever they are, meet them where they are and start building from there. If students have had schooling in whatever language they had in primary language, the transition to English is much easier, I would say, but they have to be an intentional effort and using evidence-based practices to allow for this cross-linguistic transferring of skills, to know which skills the student knows that are not transferred and has to be taught, and which ones are easily transferred between those languages. When the student has not had schooling before, it's still a place to start. And where do you start? With their primary language. Now, most of the students, I'm not saying all of them, but a great amount of the students that we are receiving are from Spanish-speaking countries. And the students, that is a rocket fuel, as one teacher says that it teaches in the multilingual schools. It's rocket fuel to learn another language. It's not holding them down. And any amount of support or connections between English and that language, it magnifies the students' ability to advance. I would say accelerate. It's not necessarily that the teacher is fluent or versed in Spanish, but to make those connections constantly every day. If one word is introduced, what is the word for that in Spanish or in the other language that the student speaks? If one letter sound is introduced, how does that letter sound in your language? And what words start with that? So there are many opportunities. I think what is critical is building that teacher capacity to welcome the students and to respond them, because it can be difficult if you haven't had the proper training.
Just to add slightly above that, I do want to give a shout out to Kennedy High School because they are launching a newcomer internationals program as well. I also just want to say that these resources, especially Elevation currently, you just type in newcomers per grade level and it will give you specific newcomer strategies for that specific content area that is standard, aligned, and updated. So it's a nice way to align work. And lastly, the 2 supplemental resources is one other step. So the Imagine Learning and the language tree is how we're focusing it if we need something a little bit more specific for our SLIFE students. And these are students with limited formal education, which are the ones who need the most support within that newcomer realm. And lastly, we have got the directive specifically from Dr. Hurst to really search into developing a stronger newcomer program at the elementary level. We're exploring options, what fits for our district. Please expect an invitation to meetings throughout the year to guide us with what fits for our district in particular.
Thank you so much. My last question is, there seems to be 2 sites, right? We have 2 different school sites. One that has a lot of English language learners, right? 50% or more, and then a school site that may have a lot less, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. So when you're doing this curriculum, right? Can you tell me the 2 models of what teachers would do inside their classroom? For example, if I only have 2 kids that are English language learners, then I may have my other 20 kids doing silent reading while I'm taking the 30 minutes with them. Do you have that broken down where you could just give us a little bit of insight in what would happen into the classroom with those 2 different models?
Great question, because that's the reality of our schools. Schools that have 50% of more English learners, they are required to regroup their students. And for that, you have to block. This requires a great deal of collaboration and willingness to do that because you have to adjust the schedule. And also for principal support, no, that this is actually implemented. And schools that have a lower amount of English learners, I think the task is a little bit more difficult. We promote cross-grade level if possible. You don't have to just regroup within your grade. You can do it cross-grade level, and it has happened. I've seen it happening at various schools. Another option is to make sure the student gets those 30 minutes, perhaps they get it in 2 15-minute blocks, where they are receiving that targeted, dedicated time on the instruction that the student needs about how English works, and making sure the student has or those group of students have the opportunity to develop language, to participate in the instruction, no? And that way they develop academic language and they have access to the content. I hope that helps clarify.
It does. Thank you very much. President Gonzalez-Hoy, I am complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith-Folds. Anyone else have questions? Trustee Phillips, we'll start with you and then we'll move to Trustee Reckler.
I really have comments, but I'm asking questions. And I'm asking 3, right? My question is to Dr. Hurst, but it's really to our entire school community. And the question is, and I can't answer it, but I will answer it at some point when I can make a comment. The question is, are there really 2 tracks, 2 educational tracks? Or is it possible that there are more than 2? And if there are more than 2, for example, if there's a 3rd track, and our goal is to get Black and brown students to that second track. But there's really a third track. Are we ever going to get Black and brown students where they really need to be?
I can talk a little bit about the track, sir. So I'm referring to during the Industrial Revolution, research talks about a conscious decision was made for those who are going to go on to factories, mills, and work in those places, and then those who are going to go on to college or some other job. And what I've shared is that those two tracks, the lower track and then the other track, that still exists in our system today. As a math teacher, I can give you an example. So in some districts, not necessarily this district, we have a system where students who take mathematics in 8th grade, and if they earn a certain grade, they're funneled into a 2-year track of Algebra 1, meaning that the whole intent behind that is to go deeper into those concepts and those skills for math students. And what I share with people, whenever you put them in that track for 2 years, then the most they could take to meet their graduation requirement is either geometry or business math or some other type of math, but they'll never have access to the rigorous course of curriculum like trig or pre-calc or calculus. So that's the 2 tracks that I'm talking about. It still exists right now.
Secondly, where are we with algebra for junior high school students?
So I can share, we've had this conversation even with the previous CAO. I know that in my conversation with Ms. Neely Johnson, that's certainly a priority. And I shared with her that we want to have algebra for students who are in need of accelerating as well. So I can follow up with her to see what conversations she's having with her team in Ed Services.
If we don't allow for our junior high school students to take pre-algebra, algebra, 7th and 8th, if we don't allow for them to do that, are we not creating the very same situation that you just complained about when you said that they tap out at a certain point without being able to get to higher level math because we didn't put them, well, you get my point. Are we not creating the very situation that you are saying is wrong?
Yes, I do agree. I think we do have to offer the algebra for those who need to advance, but I also believe we need to have a deeper conversation about what's happening at schools for those students who's not developing those skills within either pre-algebra or algebra 1, and what are we doing with those students? And even if they're not going to accelerate, how do we make sure that they acquire and develop those concepts and skills?
Thank you. Trustee Reckler?
Thank you. I don't think it was talked about tonight. Generally and briefly, What's the criteria or the decision tree to start a newcomer program?
You have to press it. There you go.
Well, we look at the criteria by looking at the student population by school. Last year, we had very serious conversations because Kennedy High School's population for English learners or former English learners were close to 50%. Specifically, recently arrived newcomers at that particular school. Now, we have the numbers. So if we have the number of newcomers, that means we need to create programs that serve our students. So that's typically where those conversations begin. So once we highlight that student population, that specific need, and we're responsive to that need, then it's a conversation with the site, planning, and stakeholders involved to make it happen. So budget conversations, PD conversations, site planning in terms of how we can split teams so they can best support it. Teachers need buy-in because this is a shift in terms of how they plan together, because the newcomer pathways specifically connect these standards throughout every single content area. So that's why it's spread out and they see those common language stems, strategies involved. And then when that occurs, we also have to, if we want to partner with internationals, they have to give us a game plan and say, you know what, I think your school is ready. We will partner with you. So internationals is a very awarded team. They don't just team up with anybody. So they have to say, okay, you have a game plan, you have the team there. We are willing to partner with you because you planned to work this at your particular school site. Also, we're growing capacity. So we started at Richmond High School, specifically looking at breaking down those track systems, looking at how newcomers were not graduating from high school, looking at how newcomers were not attending four-year universities, looking at how newcomers were not receiving an A through G requirements. It was working. So now we have data and we know those strategies are working. So we have the data that it's showing that it works. That means, okay, let's see where we can grow, build capacity, keep training going, and make these programs at other school locations as well. These conversations are ongoing.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Coordinator LaFosse and Director Orozco. And doctors, thank you for your presentation and your team as well. Oh, yes, go ahead, Dr. Hurst. He wants to make one more point.
I just wanted to just clarify with everyone. I made a comment about a teacher in our organization, a white teacher who's refusing to accept Black and brown kids in their classroom. That information was shared with me. And I will share with you that we know as a district what we would do. We're certainly identifying this teacher and who this teacher is. It is unlawful, and we do currently have board policy, and I was just reviewing it. It's actually board policy 0410. It talks about non-discrimination against individuals based on race, color, ancestry, so on and so forth. So this person is breaking the law or breaking board policy. It is unlawful. So we are going to identify who that teacher is. It is an unacceptable practice, and we are looking at our options right now, including disciplinary action, and not limited also to a recommendation for dismissal to the Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst, for sharing that piece of information. Board, we're now going to move to action items. We are going to E2, which is variable term waivers. Dr. Johnson, I believe this is your item. I'll pass to you.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, board. Variable term waivers give the school district the authority to assign teachers based on adequate knowledge of subject matters in the assignments that they are given.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. Board, are there any questions? Okay, is there a motion? Trustee Phillips? Sorry if that's not what your hand was up. But if you
No,
wouldn't
I'm
mind.
just waiting for comment time.
Oh,
that's all.
okay. Does anyone have a motion they would like to do?
I move that we accept the variable term waivers, Education Code 44258.3.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you so much. Okay, now we're gonna move to comments. Trustee Phillips, do you have a comment?
So because it's important to my wife and I that our daughter is introduced to algebra, and this really is relevant, but because it's important for us that she's introduced to algebra, this year she's attending a private school part-time so she could take algebra. And it costs $6,500 for her to take this class. And I'm thankful to the Lord that I have the ability to pay for that. But most of the people in this community do not have $6,500 to supplement for their child to be able to take an algebra class. And so I'm bringing this up for a couple reasons. There are multiple tracks in education, and our kids get filtered out oftentimes in public schools, including ones here. But it happens in so many different ways. I was telling Trustee Reckler that at this school that, and I'm not knocking anybody, and I know somebody will figure out how to take what I'm saying right now as a criticism, but that's not what it's meant to be. While we're doing, variable waivers for, teachers to be able to teach classes where they have some knowledge about the subject matter, these kids, where my daughter's attending school part-time, those teachers have PhDs in their subjects. They have master's degrees, they have PhDs, and it's not like the exception that has these things. Like there are multiple PhDs teaching junior high school kids. I'm not saying that could happen everywhere and in every situation, but education is extremely different for kids depending on what they have access to. So I'm going to use my comments tonight to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about these tracks. And this is an example of what our kids get and don't get.
Thank you. Does anyone else have comments? Okay, we're gonna move to our vote. Trustee Caleb, we're gonna start with you.
Caleb, yes.
Trustee Cypress,
Cypress, yes.
thank you. Clerk Smith Foltz,
Smith votes yes.
Trustee Christian,
Yes.
Trustee Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Phillips,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna now move to item E3, our Williams-Lawson's Complaint Quarterly Report.
Good evening, Board. Unfortunately, Louis Reeves was not able to join us tonight due to illness. My name is Ellen Mejia Hooper, and I'm here to fill in for him. For the Williams lawsuit requires a quarterly reporting for the time period of July 1st, 2023 to September 30th, 2023. There were no reports.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mejia Hooper. Sorry I didn't call on you. I knew your first name, but I could not remember your last name, so I apologize. Do we have any public comment on this item?
We have no public comment.
Thank you. Does anyone on the board have a question? Oh, someone raised their hand. Okay, sorry, everyone. We're gonna go back to public comment. If we could put up the 1 minute clock, please.
Jean Kinster, please unmute yourself.
Hello, good afternoon, evening, board. As a teacher who needs to fill out the Williams paperwork and sign off, it really worries me that we're supposed to psychically know whether or not people have internet at home. We can't know that. What form is sent home? Where is that information collected from parents? I mean, yes, I attempted to get that information by sending my own form home, but is there any way the district can help us out by collecting that information for us when they sign up, or I don't know, just help us out because we're signing that we know this and we don't know this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, I think trustee Reckler, you had a question?
I do. Thank you very much. I don't know if anybody's going to know the answer to this, but AB 1078 that was passed with urgency, which means it's the law right now. It also affects the Williams complaint. I believe it's just through notification, but I'm not 100% sure because I'm not an attorney that deals with Williams. Do we know if what's before us complies with AB 1078?
I've captured that, written it down, trustee Record. We'll have to get back with you on that one.
Okay, thank you. When we're done, I have a comment.
Thank you. Okay, does anyone have a motion? Okay, I'll move that we approve the Williams Lawson Complaint Quarterly Report.
Reckler will second.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to comments. Trustee Reckler, we can go to you.
Yeah, so my comment is just for the next time this comes around that there is a short presentation, even if it's a minute, on what needs to happen, if anything, to be in compliance with 1078. And once again, I think it's just a reporting function, like you can skip the district and go straight to Tony Thurmond. Incoming Tony, just do that. No, but no, if we could really understand like what that is and also how people know about it, is the most important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, great suggestion. Trustee Phillips?
I want to clarify something that I said about kids missing out and are being skipped over in public schools. And what I really should have said is inner city public schools, because that's what I was really talking about. Because the level of services provided in public schools across the state, heck, across the county, are different, right? So I was talking about inner city public schools are urban public schools by and large. That does not mean that there are not issues in rural public schools, for example, because there are. But that's what I was talking about at that moment. And the fact that we have to do these Williams reports, right? The history of that really is rooted in problems and inequities and deficiencies in urban public schools, right? So I think as we have this conversation around what education is supposed to look like, right? I think it's extremely important that we're shooting not for what we think is the ceiling, or at least knowing that we've actually identified the ceiling, right? Because and I'm going to say this, later, I think, and I've read, about the Industrial Revolution and what I think that there are actually more than 2 tracks. And I've been thinking about it for a long time. And I will talk again when I have 2 more minutes later.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, we're gonna now move to the vote. Trustee Caleb, we'll start with you.
Caleb, yes.
Thank you, Trustee Cypress.
Cypress, yes.
Thank you, Clerk Smith Folds.
Smith Folds, no.
Trustee Christian.
Christian, yes.
Trustee Reckler.
Correct.
Trustee Phillips.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. It passes with 1 no. Now we're gonna move to E4, Nutrition Center walk-in freezer and cooler replacement. Ms. Mejia Hooper, I think this is your item as well.
Thank you, Board and Dr. Hurst. Tonight, staff is seeking the approval of change orders 4 and 5 for the Nutrition Center walk-in freezer and cooler replacement project. These change orders accomplished the objective of preventing ice buildup around the roll-up door, which occurred when when the freezer was updated. The solution for that was installing a high-speed air curtain as well as a different type of threshold. This also includes the replacement of some of the racking systems that are used to store the material in the warehouse that are utilized by our forklift systems. So we are seeking approval for these two change orders, which overall brought the percentage of change orders above the required or above 10%, which requires board action.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Board, does anyone have questions? Okay, does anyone have a motion on this item? Trustee Claire, Smith Foltz.
I move that we accept the Nutrition Center walk-in freezer and cooler replacement non-bond change order approval.
Second.
Thank you. Does anyone have any comments on this item? Okay, let's move to our voting. Trustee Calip, we'll start with you.
Calip, yes.
Trustee Cypress,
Cypress, yes.
Clerk Smith Foltz,
Smith Foltz, yes.
Trustee Christian,
Yes.
Trustee Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Phillips.
Yeah.
And I'm a yes as well, passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now we're gonna move to E5, resolution number 2324-27, determining the Murphy School eucalyptus tree removal project. Ms. Mejia Hooper, I think this is your item as well, and I did not finish reading it, but you're welcome to explain it. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a negative declaration for a project that we would like to pursue at Murphy Elementary School. And it's the removal of eucalyptus trees. The resolution is states all of the reasons why we qualify for this negative declaration, which you can see in the various whereases. And the now therefore be resolved is that the district's governing board hereby defines, determines, declares, and orders the resolve of the following sections that are not applicable. And that allows us to move forward with the project at the school site.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this item?
There's no public comment.
Okay, board, does anyone have any questions? Okay. Does anyone have a motion? Actually, I'm so sorry, everyone. I did have one question. I apologize. Is this no financial impact? How come there's no financial impact?
So the financial impact occurs when we hire the contractor to perform the work, but the negative declaration really is just declaring that we are planning on doing this project and basically notifying the public that we are making this change to a school site.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Seems like a huge process for a tree.
There's multiple trees.
Multiple trees. Okay, well, that explains it. Thank you. Okay, well, let's move forward to the motion. Trustee Reckler, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and move resolution 2324-27, determining the Murphy School eucalyptus tree removal project is exempt from CEQA to carry out the project and directing the filing of notice of exemption.
Second.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any comments? I'm really curious to see how you work it into your comments. Trustee Phillips, go
I
ahead.
am stumped. I cannot think about how to equate eucalyptus trees to what I want to speak about.
Okay, let's move forward to our vote. Trustee Calip, we'll start with you.
Calip, yes.
Trustee Cypress,
Cypress, yes.
Clerk Smith Foltz,
Smith Foltz, yes.
Trustee Christian,
Christian, Christian, yes.
Trustee Reckler
Reckler, yes.
and Trustee Phillips?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, passed unanimously. Thank you so much, Ms. Mejia Cooper. Okay, now we're gonna move to E6. I'm actually presenting this one with Dr. Hurst and Trustee Reckler. So I'll pass it to you both to add any comments you have after I introduce a little bit of the item. So board, as you know, and public, we formed the subcommittee on the governor's handbook almost 2 years ago. The committee was Trustee Reckler, Dr. Hurst, and myself with the support of Jim Brown, who is one of our consultants. And for the last almost 2 years, we have been reviewing our current handbook, which hadn't been revised for many years. And we actually looked at samples from California and throughout the nation on could we revise and make our handbook appropriate, equitable, and up to date. As sounds, we actually spent a long time looking at the handbook, being really thoughtful with the changes. There were a lot of changes. We also provided space a couple times, I believe in the spring of last year, for other board members to provide feedback through our consultant. And what you're all seeing in front of you is the final work after we incorporated the changes that some of you provided. The idea of what the handbook is that this is kind of the introduction to board members to the work that we do. And it also provides an introduction to the public if they want to read a little bit more about how we do our governance work. It is, how many pages, Trustee Reckler? I think 63. Thank you. I also wanted to thank Genesis Munoz. I apologize. She was also an instrumental part of the committee, and she helped us actually edit the document. So I apologize for not mentioning you, Genesis, because you supported us the whole way. I actually lost count of how many times we met. So I do feel really proud of the work that we're bringing to all of you to approve tonight. I'll pass it on to Trustee Reckler first to see if she would like to add anything on the work that we did. Trustee Reckler?
Thank you. I have to say that I didn't know that I would be speaking tonight on this item.
It's okay. You don't have to add too much. So if you'd like to add anything to let the rest of the board know of the work that we did.
Yes, so we met a number of times, reviewed many documents. There was quite a bit of writing and rewriting and thought put into it. And I thank everybody for their work. And I myself have a few questions about what I see in front of us. So I'm going to ask those. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hurst, anything you'd like to add?
I'll just add that it was a rich conversation. I think one of the things that resonated with me is the conversation. I'm not sure if we resolved this, is just the accountability of the board to the document. And I think one of the things that we had shared even apart from the committee when we started talking to other board members is this is a really great document. We spent a lot of time, significant time. I think the conversation that came up about how will the board hold each other accountable for what's in the document was a key conversation. I don't think we landed on anything inside the document. I know there was conversations going back and forth and involving legal counsel. But ultimately, I think legal counsel shared that board members hold themselves accountable through policy and not necessarily the document, but through policy.
Thank you, Dr. Hurst and Trustee Reckler. So yeah, I would like to add just on that piece. A lot of you actually presented feedback to us on that piece about how to hold each other accountable to what we're agreeing in our handbook. We ended up, that was really the most difficult piece when it came to feedback that we could not fully incorporate because Dr. Hurst mentioned we can't write in the handbook that we're going to I don't know, not allow a board member to show up to a board meeting because they did not go to their one-on-one or something, right? Which was, I think, part of the feedback. The reality, as Dr. Hurst mentioned, is that under EDCO, there are very few things that we can do to hold each other accountable, but we are accountable to the public ultimately, right? Who get us elected. So what we ended up putting in the handbook reflects actually the best practice around the state that our lawyers gave us and that we actually looked at when it came to CSBA policy. So from that area, I know maybe some of you might not be completely happy that it wasn't reflective of maybe a more in-depth accountability, but that was ultimately the recommendation we went by. And then we did want to clarify that the handbook is not in line with a lot of our bylaws. So we felt that we wanted to bring this first, and then if approved, then the bylaws review committee, which is Trustee Reckler, Dr. Hurst, and myself, will then go in a deeper dive on our bylaws and then bring changes to bylaws also to be able to reflect the handbook work. So I did want to mention that because maybe some of you will see things in the handbook like, oh, that doesn't match that policy. We definitely understand that. So that'll be the next piece of the work. Hopefully it won't take 2 years. But the idea is that we're gonna start this fall, and then hopefully we'll bring you all as we do some of the changes. We'll bring those one at a time. So let's move to questions, and then I'll try my best to answer questions. If not, I'll see if Trustee Reckler or Dr. Hurst can answer, and if not, we'll follow up as well. The idea was that Jim Brown was going to be here. Unfortunately, his schedule did not allow us for him to be here, so I might have to get back to you. Okay, does anyone have questions? Trustee Reckler, I might refer it to you. Go ahead.
So the first is a question/comment, and it is on page 29. And it has to do with the student board trustees. And in item D, this sentence for item D is not complete. It says student trustees may make motions on matters of business except on matters dealing with employer-employee relations pursuant to chapter 10.7. So when this meeting is over, I will send it all in, but I'm going to read it right now. There is parentheses commencing with section 3540 of Division 4 of Title I of the Government Code. It comes straight out of the Ed Code, so that part has to be added. In addition, on this particular item, Michelle Elson, who I believe is with Lozano Smith, we've been going back and forth about a resolution and the ability of student trustees to make certain motions. We could either have gone back into the deep vault with our miners lights and our pickaxes to see when student trustees were appointed to serve on school boards. If there is such a resolution authorizing the pupils to make these motions, I don't know if that work was ever done. Lozano Smith does not have a record of having a resolution on file, so that's a piece of housekeeping. My personal opinion is I think it's easier if Lozano Smith writes the resolution and then we just bring it to the board and approve it, but we're incomplete on this particular item. That was probably a comment more than a question, but it's still a question. Did anybody ever do that work to go get that? Okay, if I may continue on page 39, there is a highlight that I'm just not sure why it's highlighted, and it has to do with when you are visiting a school site and you're notifying a principal. On the bottom of page 39, in a yellow highlight, it says best practice is to provide at least 24 hours notice to the site principal. I didn't know if that was highlighted on purpose or whether
Yeah, it was an error.
it's an error.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, I think that maybe Dr. Hurst would like us to highlight it, but it was an error. Yes.
Okay. And then on page 43, I think I need another clarification on what this means. So on page 43, posting on social media, it says individual board members are asked not to post comments about actual or potential board action items on social media, as this may create a potential violation of the Brown Act and or create issues related to indemnification. And I'm not sure, like, where we're posting comments. Are we posting comments in general on our Facebook pages or whatever? Are we posting comments on the district's page? Are we posting comments on each other's pages? Are like what? I can't recall exactly what that piece means.
Yeah, that's a great question. I do remember the conversation with Mr. Freeman was that the best practice today is that we don't post on social media how we're going to vote. That includes our own social media. And again, this is just a guideline, right? So it's not really holding us to it, but it's saying practically like, tonight I'm going to vote this way. And because it could be forwarded to another board member, but specifically he shared on public pages. So to your point, like if we were to post it on the district's Facebook page or on a page where multiple of us are in it, like in top of my head, like everybody Richmond, like if we went in there and we posted how we're going to vote and 4 of us are part of that page, a sample, that it could potentially lead to a Brown Act violation. So that's really where this came from, and the language was written by Lozano Smith.
Lozano Smith wrote that?
Yes.
Okay, that feels really unclear to me, and maybe they need to take another pass at it to say on action items or how you're going to vote. I think it needs to be a little more clear.
I think that if I may, I think that maybe the mistake that was made is that Dr. Hurst and I shrunk it because it was actually like a 3-page memo from Lozano Smith, like our good lawyers do. So we try to shrink it as much as we can with making sense. I did want to clarify, they didn't specifically, I apologize for saying that, they didn't specifically write this paragraph, we co-wrote it from what they said. So that's really where it came from.
Okay, so that when we make a motion, I'm going to come back and see if that could get straightened and clarified a little bit. Okay, my last set of questions is on page 37 and 38, dealing with protocols around disputes. Okay, so conflict resolution, we got that. So first an informal resolution, try and work it out together. The second is a formal complaint. Okay, so you do a written complaint, it goes to the board president. Then there's an initial assessment. Then there's a mediator or mediation process. And so my questions around the mediator were, how is this person chosen? Qualifications, like how it, like how is that piece working?
Yeah, that is a really good question. We did not talk about that detail. To be honest, what I think that I've experienced this year is that Dr. Hurst has made a recommendation to the group on a mediator. So that was my experience this year with one individual mediation. So I'm assuming that's what would be happening moving forward, but you're right, we should clarify. And I think Ms. Munoz is taking notes so that we can clarify that language moving forward, because we did not think about writing it.
Okay, and then finally in that, the next one, D, resolution and action on page 39, it says that based on the findings of the ethics committee, yet I can't find anywhere else in here where there's any mention of an ethics committee. So like I think that there needs to be a, some thought given to, or some more work into how that gets formed, or it's just not clear to me how that comes into existence. Some questions about that. Just, I don't see anything else written.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. We should clarify that. That actually comes from Ed Code. So Miss Mayola's firm actually provided us with the language. And she shared this is what CSBA also recommends to put in handbooks, because it follows the recommendation in Ed Code. Whenever there's violation of policy or a complaint made against a board member, where there has to be an investigation. But I do see your point, especially after seeing it tonight, that we do have to clarify this a little bit more.
Okay. So those, I think, are, let's see, do I have everything? Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Reckler. And we'll definitely follow up on those pieces. Thank you, Ms. Munoz, for taking notes. Clerk Smith-Foltz, we'll go to you.
Thank you very much. If this is voted up tonight, if this is voted through, when does it come into operation? When will it start?
Good question. I mean, I think the idea is that it would come into effect right away. Now the question is the pieces that don't follow our bylaws, those pieces, I think we're gonna have to wait until the bylaws are changed. So I know it's a little tricky because then it's like, okay, what parts am I following? That's a really good question and I don't really have an answer for you.
Okay, one of my concerns is I want to look at 29, page 29. I think it's page 29. Give me 1 second. Yeah, it's page 29. Some of the language, I just want to make sure that I understand. When it says that it is the intent of the board that all board members have the opportunity for board leadership, intent, I'm looking at, right? So, and then when it says in actual operation, this means that the board president and the clerk are elected yearly at the annual organization meeting to run to be seated as president. The member must have served at least 1 year on the board and the election complies with, okay, calendar requirements. I'm okay with that. In the event no member of the governing board has served for at least 1 year, nor wants to serve, any member may be nominated and elected to the presidency. Okay. And then the bottom on page 30. Even though or the top of page 30, even though anyone may be elected to either president or clerk position with a board majority, the elected clerk of the board shall serve with the intent to serve and be trained to step up as president in the following year. Shall, always want to have clarification around shall, right? And then any board member may self-nominate for either position. My question, I'm sorry, that's a long way of asking this. Dr. Hurst, is it typical that at the annual reorganization meeting that you run that part, or is it run by the president, the current president?
Yeah, here, since I've been here, it's been the president.
Okay,
Right.
so why do we have here that the superintendent is running that reorganization part? At the beginning of the board's annual organization meeting, the superintendent will ask for board nominations, where typically it's the president, correct?
I think that the challenge is that we used to have the superintendent run it, and then we switched it to the board president. And the bylaw number that it's listed there, sorry, I need to go to the page again. What it says in, sorry, California law, it says it can be the superintendent or, sorry, let me. Sorry, Clerk Smith-Holtz, why don't you answer the next question? And I'll get back to you on this one for a second.
I think that's it for now. I just needed clarification around those couple of parts, the word intent, shall, and then this part, why did we switch and what's the advantage and what was the conversation of the switch? Thank you.
So if I may, my recollection is that I think we were advised that you can't encumber another board with a procedure. You can recommend a procedure, but I think that it's for each board to figure out their own way of electing, whether it's the president or the superintendent or even somebody else, I think. Could be a parliamentarian, I think. So I think it's a, I think that you can't demand that it's done a certain way. I think our thinking was, since the superintendent acts as the secretary of the board, that it was an appropriate action that a secretary could perform in that function. But we can re-ask for sure.
Did you have a conversation around it should be superintendent or designee or superintendent or board president to hybrid both things that you're speaking of, or does the board bylaw state superintendent, or does the board bylaw, our board bylaw state president of the board?
I'm going to have to go back and look at that. I don't remember it being in there, but I'll have to look. I don't recall.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you. I'm complete. Thank you, President Gonzalez-Hoy.
Yeah, I don't either, and the ed code does not state that it has to be the superintendent. So I think Trustee Reckler's right. That was the conversation, but this is one of those changes to the handbook that we cannot implement until we look at the bylaw. Anyone else have questions? Okay, well, I think that what we can do tonight is that we can make a motion to approve the handbook with consideration on the feedback that was given tonight. And we'll come back with a new draft once we're able to make those changes that were talked about tonight.
I'd actually like to put another motion on the floor.
Sure, go ahead.
My motion is that the item gets tabled until it comes back with all items investigated. And my reason for that is I still have the CBOC policy in my head where I'm desperately trying to get that updated, and it's taken so long, and I'm really working on it, and I'm really sad about policy we adopted, and I'm just trying so hard to get that fixed. So I'd just like it to be perfect when we finally approve it. Thank you.
I will second Trustee Reckler's motion.
Great. Okay, well, I mean, we're kind of doing comments already, but does anyone have comments? Clerk Smith-Foltz?
President Gonzalez-Hoy, did you have a time when it would come back to the board?
No, I do not.
Okay. I reserve my comment for a minute. I was just gonna ask that question first and then I'll have comment.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna move to the vote just because it is 9:10. So we'll start with Trustee Calip.
Caleb, yes.
Thank you, Trustee Sepreser.
Sepreser, yes.
Thank you, Clerk Smith-Foltz.
Which motion are we voting on? I'm sorry, are we voting on
Tabling this item.
tabling? Smith Folds, yes.
Trustee Christian,
Yes.
Trustee Reckler,
Reckler, yes.
Trustee Phillips,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're gonna move now to our first discussion item, which is the first reading of the charter school exhibit regulation and policy. And then I'm not sure, is Ms. Moses? Oh, is Mr. Sklar here? Online.
I am.
Mr. Sklar,
Hello.
I'll pass it to you.
I think Associate Superintendent Moses was going to introduce it.
I apologize.
No worries. Good evening, board. I just wanted to introduce the item for Attorney Sklar. Edward Sklar from Lozano Smith is here tonight to introduce the first reading of our proposed charter revision. to our board policies. These changes are emphasized to make the importance of maintaining equitable and non-discriminatory admissions and enrollment practices in our charter schools a stronger priority. Thank you for being here, Mr. Sklar. You may begin.
Sure, thank you, and thanks for having me this evening. I don't really have a lot more to add other than there was an initial set of charter school-related board policies that had come before this board and had been voted on and adopted in the past few weeks, just some revisions. This is sort of the next set. Overlaps a lot of the issues that were raised as Associate Superintendent Moses said. It includes discussions that the board has been having in regard to equity, not only in enrollment and admission, but also making sure that the program is also working. The charter school programs are working in an equitable way for all of the students entering the charter school. And there was at least one clarification made in the board in the language where there was discussion, at least in the exhibit to the policy, about the language from the statute that talked about all charter schools will admit all students who apply to the charter. And that was clarified for what I believe the Charter Schools Act means in that the school will not discriminate and will have its admissions policies and admissions and enrollment policies in a non-discriminatory and equitable way. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any, but I think that the documents that were presented to this board, well, I know that they were presented where there were red lines that reflected the edits that were being made. So if there's any questions on that, there were only a few because there was a really robust revise to the district's charter policies and regulations approximately 2 years ago, when there was the charter school reform under AB 1505. So this is really some slight edits were made and tweaked in order to catch up to what the board has been discussing in regard to making sure that the charter schools are being equitable in their enrollment and services to students.
Thank you, Mr. Sklar and Ms. Moses. Do we have any public comment on this item?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. Board, does anyone have questions? We'll start with Trustee Phillips.
Thank you. I'm not sure who this question is really to, but what level of outreach was done to the charter school community regarding these proposed changes?
I can speak to that. I don't know that I don't believe that there was any outreach to the charter school community in regard to these slight revisions. If I'm wrong on that, someone can correct me.
No, I believe Mr. Sklar is right. We did not reach out to the charter schools or charter schools association.
Why did we not reach out to, bless you, why did we not reach out to the charter schools? And I mean actual schools. I'm not talking about any association right now.
Well, to be honest, it was never part of our discussion, so it was not done purposely, but I guess my response would be that it's our policy, not theirs. And since they have their own governing boards with their own policies, they don't reach out to us when they have changes. So I don't want to say it wouldn't be a bad idea, but with 14 charter schools, I think it would have taken us much longer to bring changes to any of our policies to gather their feedback.
If I could also add, the revises that were made a couple of years ago, there was discussion or it was put out there, and there was a more robust discussion when there was a more comprehensive revise about 2 years ago with the community.
Yeah, I remember there was discussion 2 years ago, and it worked, and we passed a really strong policy. So I was just wondering why we didn't reach out again for feedback whether we follow that feedback or not.
Thank you. Anyone else have questions? Okay. Does anyone have any comments on this item? Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Trustee Phillips.
I do have a general comment around the charter issue, and I think why folks, want to attend charters. And I am going to take this back to this track thing, right? Here's the thing. When we look at West Contra Costa Unified, whether it's charter students or whether it's, traditional public school students, when we talk about Black and brown students and them needing more, the comparison, for good reason and for traditional historical reason, it's to white students, right? But here's the thing that nobody ever really talks about, right? People talk about that gap between students of color and white students, but the truth is that the white students are behind too. They really are, if we're ever going to be honest. And so here's the thing, when we start saying, like, my goal is not for my 4 Black children to be academically equal to the white students in West Contra Costa Unified School District, because if that happens, my 4 Black children will be behind because the white students here are behind as well, right? And so the conversation that I really want us to start having, right, is going back to what is that ceiling really? Is it the white students? Is it when the Black students or the Latino students catch up to the white students, everyone will be okay? No, that's not true. They'll all just be behind together. There is a whole other level of achievement that is happening, and we are not hitting it. And I think part of the reason that we're not hitting it is because our eyes are not looking where they're supposed to be. They're looking at what we've been taught to look at. Just get where they're getting. I will wait until I have 2 minutes again.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Escolar, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Brad.
Now we're gonna move to item F2, the WCCUSD Teacher Development and Support Program. Ms. Neely Johnson, are you introducing this item tonight?
Actually, no, this is Dr. Johnson, wrong Johnson.
Made the wrong assumption.
That's okay. It's an easy assumption to make because you think of Ed Services. However, I am very proud to introduce these two people who are coming before you to speak on behalf of Human Resources Department and the work that they do related to teacher support, which honestly we see as a recruitment effort as well. So we have Kristen Loy, our coordinator of teacher residency programs, and Kelly Reimer, program assistant.
Thank you. Good evening to the board, Superintendent Hurst, cabinet, district staff, and the community. We are excited to share our district teacher development and support programs with you. Next slide, please. The programs that we are discussing tonight are the West Contra Costa Teacher Residency Program, Teacher Induction Program, and Teacher Support and Assistance Program. As Dr. Johnson shared, my name is Kristen Loy, and I'm the coordinator of teacher residency programs for our district. I've been with the district for 18 years, and I'm also a proud graduate of WCCUSD. I'm really excited that we have a small but mighty team supporting our programs, and am grateful that we have Kelly Reimer, our program assistant for the Teacher Induction Program, here with us tonight. We are also excited to welcome Tori Shaka as our program assistant for TSAP in January. And we also have our wonderful part-time typist clerk, Melissa Faith, who has been with the Teacher Induction Program for over 20 years. Next slide, please. So our main goal with our programs is to create a continuum of support for our WCCUSD teachers, no matter where they are in the preparation or certification process. Next slide. We're going to start at the beginning of our continuum of support today with our teacher residency program, which is our district's newest program. Next slide. So residency program is a newer pathway into teaching. In the past, many teachers have been prepared either through the traditional student teaching route or through the intern pathway. And so the residency pathway is similar to student teaching, where teachers, the resident teachers are not teachers of record as they're doing their fieldwork experience, but they are matched with a mentor teacher for the entire year and have a gradual release of responsibilities. Next slide. And so what exactly is a teacher residency program? With the Pathways Alliance definition here, I'm going to be talking about the main components of a teacher residency program in the following slides. The first component is that a residency program is anchored in partnerships and collaborative design between the LEA and the IHEs. And so we have 2 teacher residency programs right now with 2 different university partners. One partner is Cal State East Bay, and this is for our residency program that focuses on developing education specialists. Our second residency program is a partnership with Dominican University of California, and this program focuses on diversifying the workforce and preparing teachers who are earning a multiple subject or single subject credential. A second component of a teacher residency program is that it provides affordable opportunities and support for residents. On average, it costs about $15,000 to $20,000 to earn a teaching credential in California, and this doesn't even include living expenses. And so through the residency, residents receive about $20,000 of financial support to go towards their credential program. And we also work on connecting them with additional grant opportunities, whether they're federal or state, just to help provide some additional support for living expenses. The residents' tuition funding is funded through grants that we've received from CTC. And since 2016, our district has received 2 rounds of the Classified School Employee to Teacher Credentialing Grant and also 4 teacher residency grants. One update that I'm excited to share is that Governor Newsom recently signed legislation that increased our funding from $25,000 per resident to $40,000 per resident. If you could go ahead and click the next transition. And so this means that if we were to have full cohorts over the next 2 years, WCCUSD would receive up to $1.48 million in each of the next 2 years, with the majority of the grant funding going directly towards supporting the residents. Another component of teacher residency programs is providing high quality opportunities and support in working alongside an accomplished mentor teacher. And so our residents are matched with a mentor teacher, and they are with them from the very first day of school all the way to the last day of school, which really gives them the opportunity to truly build the strong, trusting relationships with their mentor teacher and with their students. Through the residency, we also offer more district organized sessions for support with their credentialing exams and also just general support and communication compared to other pathways. A fourth component of the residency program is that they are really designed to support the instructional and staffing needs of the LEA. And so one of our HR goals this year is to reform our recruitment pipeline to reduce the number of vacancies by 25%. And so our teacher residency program is a powerful strategy to support this goal for HR with this potential outcome, including residents from previous cohorts and also our future cohorts. Our program can develop 121 high-quality, well-prepared, credentialed teachers by June 2026. In addition to filling vacancies in general, the teacher residency program is also supporting specific district needs, such as our expanding DLI and TK programs, especially because they have additional certification requirements. Our teacher residency program is also supporting the district's needs with retention strategies. Our residents are committing to teach in West Contra Costa for at least 4 years, but of course, we are hoping that they remain with us for much longer than that. And with our 17 residents in this year's cohorts, 94% of them live in our community, and 100% of them have connections to or prior experiences with the district. And so they have strong ties to our community, and they are already invested in our students. The teacher residency program is also supporting our district's need to diversify our workforce and provide our students with opportunities to learn from teachers with similar cultural backgrounds and experiences. This year, in our cohorts, 94% of them identify as BIPOC, and the graphic here from one of our residents shows her journey, how she immigrated to the US at 7 years old. She graduated from WCCUSD, and now she's back with the district in our residency program, fulfilling a dream to become a teacher. Through our various informational and recruitment sessions, we have learned a lot and really identified some areas of need. And the most immediate need that we found is that we need to support our classified employees with obtaining a bachelor's degree, because we've had about 1/3 of our attendees who come to our informational sessions who are interested in teaching but don't hold a bachelor's degree yet. And so knowing that we have this large community of employees who want to be teachers specifically in our district, we have been building opportunities to support our classified employees with obtaining a bachelor's degree and developing a grow our own pipeline. With our classified grant funding from CTC, this provides some tuition assistance to our employees, and we have 28 classified employees receiving the award this year. For those who may prefer an alternative pathway to earning their BA, we also have a new partnership initiative with Rivet School and Chamberlain Education Foundation, where they offer 1 year of subsidized tuition for our classified and contracted employees who want to earn their BA degrees. We currently have 23 employees enrolled with Rivet School, and out of those 23, 11 are dedicated to becoming teachers. And so what we're seeing is we have so many employees who are invested in our community, and for many of them, they've shared it's their goal and it's their dream to teach for our district. And so we're not lacking talent, we're not lacking the dedication, it's just the opportunities for our employees. And so we're seeing that it's our job to connect our talented employees with the opportunities and with these resources. And so again, our teacher residency program, we see it as a vital strategy to meet our goal in reducing our vacancies and to develop teachers who reflect the diversity of our students. By June 2026, our program can develop 121 high-quality, well-prepared, credentialed teachers who are committed to teach in WCCUSD for at least 4 years and hopefully beyond. And these teachers will also continue to receive authentic and aligned support from mentor teachers through our other two established programs, TSAP and TIP. And so we're going to move forward on our continuum of support now and talk briefly about our teacher support and assistance program. As I shared, Tori Shaka is going to be our TSAP program assistant, and she's coming in January. But in the interim, I have been supporting the program, and we've also had a couple of retired educators who've been supporting TSAP as well. With TSAP, there are two strands of support. And so the first strand is for all of our teachers who are at the beginning of their careers and they are on emergency and intern credentials. And so they are matched with a mentor teacher who provides them with just-in-time support, supporting them with whatever their needs are, for example, in areas such as classroom management, curriculum, and also with their credential requirements. The second strand of TSAP is the administrative referral coaching, and this was the program formerly known as PAR. And so the TSAP coach works in collaboration with the referred teacher and the administrator, and they create a teacher assistance plan based on the California standards for the teaching profession and conduct individual coaching cycles. All of our TSAP participants are teaching full-time, and so they truly do need a lot of support. For those who are on emergency credentials and have not enrolled in programs yet, it really is up to us to provide them with support in connecting with a program that will fit their needs. For all of our TSAP participants, we're also seeing that they need support in preparing for their credential exams and assessments. And finally, we also have a need to provide more professional development besides the coaching and mentoring that they're already receiving, especially for those who have not enrolled in programs yet. And so now we're going to move on to our third program on our continuum of support. I'm going to pass it on to Kelly Reimer.
Thank you, Kristen. Good evening. I would just like to talk a little bit about the teacher induction program and how it fits into our continuum of support. So when teachers finish their preparation programs and all required assessments, they receive their preliminary credential, and they're eligible at that time to enroll in the teacher induction program. Now, induction is a state requirement, and many districts have in-house induction programs like we do. But I also really believe that induction is a way to retain our teachers and keep our teachers here. Having weekly one-on-one meetings and 2 years of mentoring, support, and coaching is really a strong way to have teachers feel like they belong in their community, stay in the profession, and stay here in West Contra Costa Unified. TIP is also offered free of charge here because we have our in-house teacher induction program. So that's also an added bonus. As you can see here, some roles and responsibilities of all of the folks that are involved in teacher induction program and TIP. Starting with participating teachers, they do many, many things with their support providers. They develop a job embedded individual learning plan. They self-assess using the continuum of teaching at the California the CSTPs, as Kristen mentioned, the California Standards for the Teaching Profession. They engage in goal setting, creating SMART goals with their support providers, and lots of reflection on practice. This is a skill we really want to build in early career teachers. Our support providers are teachers who are veteran teachers or experienced teachers who qualify to be mentors, support providers in our program. They coach and they collaborate around the professional growth of the teachers they support, and that includes observations as well as continual feedback. TIP staff, which is me, has also a role in making sure our support is encompassing everyone. I match teachers with their support providers. I also provide feedback on the teacher's individualized learning plans 3 times a year. I also have the opportunity to facilitate professional development for our support providers as well. And then our site administrator is also a really key piece of support for teachers. We ask that they meet with, as a triad, the participating teachers, support providers, and site administrators meet at some point in the year. And that is a wonderful opportunity for our site admin to provide feedback on the teachers' ILP goals and the collaboration they're doing with their support providers, and ensure that they're aligned with the goals of the site. So on the next slide, I think I have some participant data to share. We have an end of the year survey that we give to all teachers and support providers. And last year, this is some data from our participating teachers end of the year survey. 71% of our teachers took the survey. You can see here year 2 teachers who completed induction. Of the survey respondents, 87.2% plan to return to WCC USD. These are year 2 teachers who completed induction, which means they're recommended for the clear credential and are fully credentialed. Year 1 teachers, 87.1% stated that they plan to return for their second year of induction. And you can see those 2 quotes to the right from teachers taken from our survey really shows the impact that support providers have on the teaching practice for early career teachers. We have some participant needs and growth areas. One area teachers really would like to see more of is professional development for them around the CSTPs, and facilitated by teachers in the community, really leveraging the expertise of our community of educators. And also there's a small number of teachers in our program that still need to complete the RECA and pass the RECA test. So similarly with many teachers in TSAP, that has been an area of need as well. So I think now Kristen will speak to some of those differences of TSAP and TIP over the last few years.
Thank you, Kelly. So this graph shows a 5-year comparison of TSAP and TIP participants. Between 2019 and 2022, the number of participants in each program were fairly steady. However, in the past 2 years, we've really seen a shift where there's been an increase in our TSAP participants and the number of teachers that we have on emergency credentials. This is partially due to the teacher shortage, but it's also the continual barrier of the credentialing exams. And so we know that this is really an area that we need to target and provide more support on. And so in closing, we just wanted to share 3 final notes. This year, through our 3 programs, we are supporting approximately 30% of our teachers across 96% of our school sites. We really see the teacher residency program as supporting a district need in creating a pipeline of teachers who are prepared to teach specifically in our district, with TSAP and TIP providing structured systems of support for them in their first few years of teaching. And then finally, we really value continual improvement and growth, and we are really passionate and dedicated about supporting our new teachers and supporting our incredible mentor teachers, but there's only so much that we can do with our capacity. And so to be able to sustain and grow all of our programs, we truly need increased levels of support in order to provide our teachers and students the high quality, individualized support that they all deserve. And so thank you very much for the opportunity to share about our programs with you. We're happy to answer any questions now. And also if questions come up in the future, or if anyone in the community wants to connect with us, this is our contact information. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we have one public comment. Jean Kidster. Please unmute yourself.
I'm sorry, I think I hit a button that I didn't mean to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No problem. Board, we're gonna move to questions. Does anyone have any questions? Trustee Reckler and then trustee clerk Smith Falls. Excuse me, Smith Falls.
Sure, thank you so much for this presentation. I think it was my idea to have you come, and I'm really delighted to receive this. This is so amazing. Is your department or is the WCCUSD taking advantage of everything monetary that the state and the county has to offer? Or are there other monetary supports out there that could be accessed?
We are applying for as many grants as possible. I know that there's another federal grant available that hasn't been released in the past couple of years that I've been keeping my eye on. Because again, we'd really like to grow our team, and we know that we need to be looking for additional financial opportunities. And so that's why we're also looking to increase our partnerships and why we've partnered with Rivet and also receiving that support through Chamberlain Education Foundation. So I'm sure there are additional resources out there that we will continue to search for.
Okay, great. And next is, can you talk a little bit about your advertising and your marketing? Like, how do you?
I'm so sorry, Trustee Reckler. Can you repeat that, please?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm sorry. How do you do your advertising and your marketing? How do you find candidates, or what, like what vehicles have you found that work well for attracting candidates?
Honestly, it's really based in relationships right now. That is the strongest. And I have to give a shout out to our site administrators who are always recruiting for us. And so constantly I have site administrators or other district employees who are connecting me with people who are interested in teaching, whether they're already our employees or just someone who has heard about the program. And so what I do is as soon as someone's introduced to me, then I'll connect with them and we have a short phone call or a Google Meet and talk about what they're interested in teaching, if they have their bachelor's degree, and then connect them with the right resources. And so really the relational approach has been the strongest right now, but we are also going to job fairs, both external and the internal job fairs that we have. And again, really targeting our classified employees. As Kim had shared, I had the opportunity to talk to quite a few on Monday at the professional development.
And then finally, in the board packets from time to time, there are partnerships that come. I think Boston University came recently, and Dominican, there was another school down south. How are those relationships established? How do you find them and get them to commit to us?
So I know our district has had a longtime partnership with Cal State East Bay. And so that partnership for our special education had been developed and supported for the past several years. In terms of our newer partnership with Dominican, since this is our first year, I met with a lot of different credential programs in the area and just found out, what kind of supports they could offer us, and really wanted to see how collaborative the programs were. And so with Dominican, we found that they fit a lot of our needs in terms of having their program online. They offer tuition assistance for school employees, and they're counting all of our residents as school employees. And they also have a teachers of color tuition assistance as well that reduces their tuition. And they've just been a very collaborative partner so far. And so that's really what we were looking for, since we're looking to really prepare our teachers to teach in our district and not just looking for a separate program that our teachers are participating in.
Great, thank you so much. I definitely have a little comment at the end.
Thank you. Clerk Smith Falls.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the presentation. I have a couple of questions for you. Many, many years ago, when I came to teach, I came from Alabama, and the only two states in the United States of America that did not accept my Alabama credential were California and New York. are there still barriers to out-of-state credentials that we have in the state of California?
Yes, I know it's still different depending on the state that our teachers are coming from, but often they do have some additional requirements, including induction sometimes. It really depends on their experience, though. If they've had a lot of teaching experience, then they may be awarded a preliminary credential, but they may not need induction and just need to earn like the English learner authorization. And so it just really depends on each candidate and their different requirements and what state they're coming from. But that's the beauty, I think, of how induction is now. It used to be a very set program, but now it really is, as Kelly said, job embedded and individualized. So even if there's someone from out of state who's coming in and needs to participate in induction, it really is up to them to create goals just to continue to grow and continue to improve their practice.
Thank you so much. The second question I have is found on slide 14. Is there any way that you could go to slide 14?
Okay.
And if you can't, I can ask the question anyway. But on slide 4, oh, you can't do it. Okay. On slide 14, the little pie graph that we see there.
Yes.
The little pie graph said that those, let me ask this question. Are those the ethnic breakdown of the teachers that we have, the 15 teachers that you talked about?
Yes.
In
This-
that pie graph, and I can't see it from where it is now, but in that pie graph, are there any Black teachers in that pie graph?
One teacher, the multi-ethnic, is half Black.
Okay, so they're Black and some, they identify as Black and something else.
Yes.
Okay. The rest is for a comment on that one. The next part is when we graduate these teachers out or when they proceed through the program, do we, and they apply to be teachers at WCCUSD, are they given the same opportunity as the rest of our teachers? They can go out for interviews at any school that has an opening, or are we placing them at schools that need teachers?
We are giving them some choice in terms of placing them in classrooms after they have finished their residency program.
So they can choose the site or the classroom that they want to be in after they go through the residency program.
Correct, working with the site administrators. So they've already been hired by the district, but then they will interview to be placed at their specific school and in their assignment.
Okay, thank you for that. And the final question, the criteria for the mentor teacher, right? Some of our most experienced teachers are retiring out, they're doing other things. So what is the criteria for a mentor teacher? Do you have to be a teacher that's taught over 5 years? Is there a matrix that you're looking at to then say this is a qualified mentor teacher? I know when I did the BISTA program there, my BISTA teacher had a whole list of qualifications that they had to meet to be a BISTA teacher. So can you speak to that?
Yes, so they must hold a clear teaching credential and have at least 3 years of teaching experience. But we have all of our mentor teachers go through an application process that includes a classroom observation where we come and observe their classroom teaching. There's a group interview and references, including from their site administrator.
My final question, I'm sorry, President Gonzalez-Hoy. My final question is, when we're looking at those mentor teachers, are we diversifying the mentor teachers that we have in place? So are we making sure that we have African-American mentor teachers, that we have mentor teachers that are bilingual, that we have mentor teachers who are LGBTQIA+, we have mentor teachers that, are we having our mentor teachers be reflective of the students that we want the new teachers to come in here and be able to teach? Is it all one thread that we're trying to make sure that we're creating?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Yes, we are definitely trying to make sure that we're offering a diverse pool of our mentor teachers as well. Sometimes in terms of the actual matching process, it really depends what credential the resident is pursuing in terms of what mentors we have available, but we are absolutely trying to make sure that we have diverse mentors available as well.
Thank you very much. The rest are just comments. I'm complete.
Thank you. Trustee Christian, you had a question?
Yeah, the question I have, is this information going out to the classified staff in the district?
Yes, we have shared all of this information with classified staff through emails, through HR, no reply. We've been sharing several emails with them. We also have shared information through Teamsters and through the unions. And then again, being able to connect with our classified employees at events such as the Professional Development Day on Monday has been really key in terms of being able to make those connections with our classified employees.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Christian. Okay, now we're gonna move to comments. I think a lot of folks had comments, so we'll start with Trustee Phillips and we'll just head to my left. I apologize. Trustee Phillips, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think that this is really cool. Sometimes we have hopes and thoughts around what we would like to see in a district. But all of these positions are transitory. Board seats are 4 years. You may run for reelection and get another 4, but at some point you move on. And as I was listening to your presentation, I was thinking about past board members, folks who are not on the dais anymore, like Consuelo Laura, but who are in other places, still working, for community. And I was picturing her, and I haven't talked to her in a while, but I was picturing her in my mind while you were speaking, and I just saw her smiling. And I saw her smiling because she really was into growing teachers. She was really into residency. I'm gonna say she was, and she is into this. And so, things don't always happen when we want them to happen for whatever reason. But if it's a good idea, it's funny how things work out, right? And they have a way of coming back around. And it doesn't mean that, in the interim that there hasn't been any work done on this, because I know that there has. But I do really appreciate this being highlighted. I don't know if Consuelo is watching, or Madeline, or other folks who have been talking about this, but who are no longer on this stage. But it's a good conversation. It's something that needs to happen and be supported. So thank you for your work, and staff, thank you for your work as well.
Thank you. Trustee Reckler?
Again, thank you so much for this presentation. I think I did ask for it, and I'm just delighted with what I see. It's just terrific. And I wanted to address your last page, page 25, and to thank you for your self-advocacy. And I love it when departments put themselves out there, but there are some really true things on this last page, which is you're supporting your teeny tiny little department is supporting 30% of the teachers across 96% of the sites. I don't need to know any more to say that you're understaffed. But I do encourage you to write out your dream. And then I encourage you to tell your superiors, what it is you need to grow. And be specific and with the dollar amounts, because that makes decision-making easier. And thank you again.
Thank you. Trustee Christian?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. This is well needed because we definitely need to have more teachers on board. And this is a great thing, becoming like a substitute and then getting your full credentials, become a full teacher. I'm happy to say, for me, I'm a substitute teacher over in the Oakland School District. And so I'm gonna work on getting my credential as well. But this is cool. This is real cool. You know, man. But yeah, this is really great, and yeah, we need more teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Smith Foltz?
I think only thing that I want to continue to highlight is there has to be a intentionality behind who we're seeking, why we're seeking that person, how we're supporting the teachers that we're bringing into the district. So I believe that this is good that you're bringing these things forward, but we have to make sure that when we're bringing these programs forward, and when we're talking to the satellite schools or the flagship schools, we're saying, this is who we need in WCC USD, because we have an intentionality that the people that are in front of our students, our representation matters. And this is our population, and this is the type of character of a teacher that we need to come into our schools. Where they are culturally responsive, they have an anti-racist, anti-bias stance, they are able to speak to all manner of trauma that our students face in the district. So it's one of those things that when we are creating this profile of who we are as a district, we need to also create that same profile in our hiring, in our recruiting, in our retention, in our support, and our resources that we have as our mentor teachers and our grow our own, because that's when we really are able to shift the district and able to shift the learning of our students, because there's a real connection to the people that are standing in front of them. I'm complete.
Thank you. For my comments, first of all, thank you for being here tonight, especially so late. Both of you are just rock stars. And Ms. Loy, you know, I'm a huge fan of your work for years. You know, Ms. Loy had started in the tip department when I cleared my credential. And to Trustee Reckler's point, at that point, I think you had 3 or 4 staffers just doing tip. So we are understaffing you. Is that a reality? And I wish we could just say that we're going to provide you more staffing, which, you know, we can't. But I say that because I think that both of you do amazing work. You are supporting our teachers every day. And I'm just really thankful for that, because that work that's happening with the coaching and the site visits and the observations and the meeting with the experienced teacher, that made a big difference for me when I was a teacher. I know it's making a big difference for teachers all the time. And I really love this new program of the residency, because I agree with Trustee Christian. I mean, I think that the partnership with Classified is huge, because what we know about our classified workers is that majority of them live in our community and majority of them are BIPOC, right? Which we need both of them to be in our classrooms. So forming those relationships, Dr. Johnson, thank you, because we do need to have our classified workers become teachers. I mean, I'm really appreciative that they are classified workers in our schools already, but I want to see that transition as well. So I'm really thankful for this and for everything, both of you and your very large department. I say that, you know, ironically, but I really do appreciate the work. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, board, we're now going to move to, we are done with our discussion items. Trustee Phillips, you pulled C13. And I'm not sure if you're just pulling it so we vote on it separately, but just a reminder that we can discuss it. Okay, I'll pass to you. It was just that we would vote public. Okay, got it. Sorry about that. Yeah, we usually put it on their action, so I apologize that we put it on consent. We usually do put it in action, so that was our mistake. So this is for the stipulated expulsion case number 232401. And I'll make the motion that thank you, that we approve the agreed upon stipulated, thank you, expulsion.
Smith Foltz, seconds.
Thank you. We'll move straight to the vote. Trustee Calip.
Calip, yes.
Trustee Cypress-Hurt.
Cypress-Hurt, yes.
Clerk Smith Foltz.
Smith Foltz, yes.
Trustee Christian.
Christian, yes.
Trustee Reckler.
Uh, I'm going to abstain because I wasn't there. Thank you.
Trustee Phillips?
Abstain.
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, my vote's yes. It passes with 2 abstentions. Okay, now we're gonna move to comments from the board. If we could put up a 3-minute timer. And then we'll start with, would our student trustees like to make comments? We'll start with Trustee Caleb. Do you mind starting? Go ahead.
Yeah, so first I'd like to say thanks for all the presentations that was given today. It was pretty nice and pleasant to enhance my knowledge of what the changes are being made and how they're being presented to the board, such as the teacher development and support program. And then next, I do agree with how there should be like proper finalization for like handbooks and their approval, just as previously discussed, because it is important for the wording to be thorough and not vague, as I have seen this personally through another manual, which is the ASB district manual, but then that's obviously a topic for another day. And then I thank and appreciate the board for being understanding and supporting of my tardiness due to a personal issue and for always just being there when needed.
Thank you so much. Trustee Cypress.
So I would first like to thank everyone, of course, for the presentations and the information given today. And again, for letting the tardiness be okay. I appreciate that. But for one, I would like to say I really enjoyed the teacher presentation about the special programs and the residency. The teacher residency was something I have not heard about before, so it was nice to learn about because that does give us more opportunities to bring in teachers from everywhere, and transportation wouldn't have to be an issue, or commuting wouldn't have to be such a large issue. I am glad to see more support for teachers in the district because I'm also glad to hear that there's teachers who dream to be a part of our district. That does make me happy to see that we're going to gain passionate teachers who have a strong desire to work hard for our district and help the kids here. So that's all I had to say for today. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you so much. Board, does anyone have comments tonight? Trustee Phillips, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the meeting tonight. I want to go back to this dual track. And I want to go back to it because I think it's really important to the strategic planning process that we're doing. And it may seem, Dr. Hurst, like I'm picking on you. I'm not. And the reason why I started it the way I did is because I couldn't make comments. And so I had to ask a question. And the only way I could do it was really asking you, right? Because I couldn't just talk. So it is a fact, what you said, about the Industrial Revolution and factory workers and college, that was all true. But what I believe is also a fact is this. While Black and brown students historically have been put on that first track that you're talking about, and that white students, not all, but more so, have been put on the second track that you're talking about, or we could flip them either way. Those white students were being groomed for lower level middle management jobs. And when you start looking at colleges in the Bay Area, for example, like San Francisco State versus Cal, right? And the history behind those two schools, and that students were being, and I went to San Francisco State, right? But that students were being funneled to San Francisco State who were really being slotted for middle, lower level jobs, right? The jobs that make things go round. There's a third track. There's a third track. And that third track is for students who are expected to lead everyone else, people that they want to lead everyone else. And they get a whole nother level of education that people don't get on the first two tracks. There is a third one. The third one is when you start talking about your high schools and you start talking about Andover and you start talking about Groton and you start talking about places like Head Royce. It's another track. And what I'm trying to say in this space is we need to stop shooting for that track that we think is the one that's the right one, the one that's really just the lower level. It's better than the one that we're usually on. I think you get the point I'm trying to make. And I ran out of time. I'll pick it up next meeting.
Thank you. Does anyone else have comments tonight? Clerk Smith Folds.
Thank you so very much. I just want to review a couple of things that we talked about in summary. Remember to buy a banned book, read a banned book. Is important to not let someone else tell you what you can and cannot read and what content is and is not available to you. Every word is an important word, so please read banned books. Ladies and gentlemen, homecoming is coming, so we need to be very careful in our high schools and our middle schools when we're talking about homecoming. I hope everyone has a great homecoming parade and that it becomes a bigger and bigger deal in our district, homecoming and homecoming parades. It's always a big deal in the South. Again, don't forget to wear orange on October the 18th. That is our Unity Day. Bullying comes in all forms, adult to adult, adult to student, student to student. So we need to make sure that we're addressing all forms of bullying. When we're talking about teacher development, I want to know who's developing whom. So who do we have developing these teachers? Because I think that's very important. It helps lead to the type of teachers that we have in the classroom. I think there's space for this board to talk with our cities about teacher housing, but this is a conversation in conjunction with the cities. This is not just a district conversation. This has to be a conversation in conjunction with how we recruit and bring more teachers in. Also, the pathway about elementary school and high school. If we're talking about teaching, then we need to look at pathways. Are we creating pathways in our high school for high school students to explore the teaching field and the teaching profession? Because it is a skill to know how to be a teacher. We also need to look at how we treat our teachers who are mothers and have families. What are we doing? What policy are we putting in place to keep them here after they come back from maternity leave or before they start making their families? Thank you again for the admin, for admin appreciation. Admin appreciation should not just be a day, a week, or a month. It should be all year long because they work the entire year. I want to thank Ms. Mary Ann LaFosse for her quick and wonderful education with ELL and ELD. It was an amazing presentation. Also, Mr. Orozco for that. I have the pleasure of being on the Literacy Task Force, the Race and Equity Task Force, and the Strategic Planning Task Force. So please reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about all of those things that we're doing. I think that we need, in the last 41 seconds, the governance handbook. I'm looking forward to bringing that back and looking at it again. We need maybe a mini lesson in educational history on the board side so we can make sure about the policy that we're making. The last thing I want to talk about is I think that as a board, we need to make sure that we're tightening up on procedures. If you're making comments, it's to the item that we're making comments on. If not, we need to agendize it so we can have a full board conversation and give board members the space to have those conversations in more than just chunks. So we can all have a conversation together. President Gonzalez-Hoy, it was a long, very, very long agenda, but you got us out again before 10:30. So I want to thank you for that. And I am complete.
Thank you, Clerk Smith Folds. Okay, I see more hands now. So we'll go Trustee Christian and then Trustee Reckler.
Okay, I just want to, first of all, just thank everyone for the presentation this evening. And as I, just reflect on a few of these items, one of the things I look at, especially like fundraising for our students at the school levels, it takes money to operate different things. So fundraising is very important, versus being pulled, but it's very important, very important. Without fundraising, you can't do much. So it takes money to make things happen, unless we are rich to give them money. And then, basically, dealing with cyber safety, bullying, dealing with bullying, cyber safety, and so forth. We got to keep our schools safe. Continue to look for our weak spots to make things better on our school campuses. And far as that, we just had to, continue to follow what we supposed to do. We put it out. Let's make it happen. That's all of my comments for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to trustee Reckler.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. Once again, I too want to re-thank the school administrators for everything you've taught me about patience, flexibility, ability to change on a dime. I really appreciate everything that you've taught me. I also am on the literacy task force, and we had our first meeting, which was great. We did a little norming. Everybody got to explain why they were passionate about this topic and why they were in the room. I anticipate some really deep, fun, and challenging conversations, as well as direction setting. So this was really good. I also want to thank the principals that showed up tonight. When principals show up about an item, it's really important. And so I'd like to thank the principals for coming and to let them know that Teach Start was approved tonight, and it came out of ESSER 3. So there's a challenge right now, which is once ESSER 3 goes away, if people love it, how do we make it our own, and how does that get funded? So I hate to be the Debbie Downer on that, but that's a fact. Finally, some things that are happening in other states weigh very deeply on me, and so I would like to know if all of our non-harassment policies, our bullying policies, and all related policies, especially in relations to LGBTQIA plus students, are they as strong as they can possibly be? I'm not really quite sure what we can do because of the lawsuit, that California is involved in, but we should, at least on our level, make sure that that is as strong as it can possibly be. And that we do get this policy committee up and going, because we've got a lot that does need to get tweaked, and in some cases completely overhauled. Once again, everybody change your password. That's more a reminder for me than anybody else, but change your district password and keep cybersecurity in your mind. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Reckler. For my comments, one, I want to say the budget contract subcommittee, we had our first meeting last night, feels like a week ago. And last night we already found $800,000 of contracts or services that we are proposing to the board to cut or to find through categorical funds. So it felt like a really good start. And it also put things in quite a bit of reality. We got a presentation from Ms. Moses on the multi-year projections. We are still at $20 million deficit for next year. Our minimum goal, and Clerk Smith also has done a great job at chairing the committee, is to find $4.6 million in contracts and services. That is our minimum. If we can find more, that means less FTEs that we might have to cut in March. So we're gonna push hard. But as we saw yesterday, by the way, you didn't start my timer, and I'm gonna keep talking, and I forgot where I was. So yeah, put me down at like 1.5. So we do have quite a bit to do. I asked the rest of our board to please, if you can watch our subcommittee meetings, we're only gonna have 6 meetings. That's our goal, to be done by end of November. So it's not that much added. So I recommend everybody watch this. I want to say three more things. One, thankful Mr. Orozco and Ms. LaFosse about the newcomer program. It is so needed. As someone who went into an American school without knowing English and feeling lost for years, I know hundreds of our students feel that way every single year in our district, and they're just falling through the cracks. If they don't leave our schools without finishing, they end up not succeeding later on if they're not provided with the right resources. So that's going to be huge, and I'm really thankful to hear that it's being explored. Dr. Urso, thank you. I do want to say just very quickly, my heart and my prayers are with people in the Middle East tonight, the lives being lost every day in Israel and neighboring countries. My heart goes out to all of them and to the Jewish community here in the Bay Area. and our Jewish staff, my heart is with you. And then I agree, Trustee Reckler. I do think that we have to look at our policies and what's protecting our LGBTQ community students. Because we have already gotten inquiries on the campaign that's happening nationwide and in our state around the rights for LGBTQ students. And we are already responding to those inquiries from these right-wing organizations. So we're gonna have to really get on it quickly. So I appreciate that you mentioned that. All this to say thank you, staff, for tonight. And I was the last comment. So now we're gonna move to our last thing, which is our next board meeting is on October 25th here at Lavanya Dijon. And I adjourn our meeting at 10:13 p.m. Thank you, everyone.